Chapter 1176. It was impossible to become a true emperor without condensing one's own worldly law. The origin world was opened when martial artists and fiend gods refined the laws of the world for the first time. It enveloped the pure power of the world, allowing people to devour and refine it. However, this kind of thing would only happen when one was about to step into the emperor realm. Chu Fengmian was not even a quasi-emperor, let alone a sovereign. He hadn't even reached the immortal realm, yet he had opened the origin world. This was beyond common sense and all rules. It broke everyone's understanding. Once the origin world appeared, no one could approach it except for the person who opened it. Anyone who approached would be attacked by the origin world. Even a true emperor would have to face the attack of the origin world. Retreat. Blood Demon Sovereign and the others hurriedly retreated. This was because an endless stream of worldly power was descending. I actually opened the origin world. Chu Fengmian didn't expect that he would open the origin world in the center of the worldly power. Chu Fengmian had heard of the wonders of the origin world. Condensing the first worldly law was the foundation of all sovereigns. The deeper the foundation, the greater the future achievements. Chu Fengmian's talent was the same. He had condensed the divine veins and would surpass everyone on the path of a martial artist. This time, Chu Fengmian would also surpass everyone on the path of sovereign. Come, the worldly power, devour it all. Devour the heavens. Rumble. Chu Fengmian activated the power of the heaven-devouring beast bloodline. A huge vortex formed above his head. The endless power of the heaven-devouring beast descended and was devoured by the vortex. The devoured power of heaven and earth poured into Chu Fengmian's body and into his divine meridians. His divine veins were undergoing earth-shattering changes. They were being baptized by the worldly power, turning from Hotian to Xiantian. Not enough, not enough. I want to condense the strongest worldly law in the world. How can this be? The heaven-devouring secret technique continuously devoured worldly power and integrated it into Chu Fengmian's body. However, he felt that the worldly power was still not enough. The power of heaven and earth released by the crack was not enough for Chu Fengmian to devour. There was only one chance to open the origin world. If he didn't devour enough this time, he wouldn't have another chance. Tree of God. Out. Chu Fengmian hardened his heart, and a huge divine tree flew out in front of him. The divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body was completely different from before. After Chu Fengmian had devoured the essence and blood of countless experts, the divine tree had expanded thousands of times. It was now 1,000 feet tall and flew out. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian moved and charged to the front of the origin world. He pushed the power of the tree to the limit. Crack! The crack in the origin world was forcibly widened by the power of the sacred tree. Even more power of the world poured down. The branches and leaves of the God tree were continuously devouring the power of the heavens and earth. In an instant, the speed at which the power of the heavens and earth was being devoured increased by dozens of times. Ancestral Dragon's supreme sword. Titanic godly sword. The Emperor Jar. All of you come out. Chu Fengmian took out the 3 spirit treasures in his body at the same time and allowed them to continuously devour the power of the heavens and earth. The power of the heavens and earth contained the laws of the world. An ordinary spirit treasure could transform into a heaven-grade spirit treasure and obtain countless benefits. The 3 spirit treasures also unleashed their full power after sensing the rich power of the heavens and earth. Who knew how much power of the heavens and earth was being devoured by them? Such rich power of the heavens and earth. This is 1,000 times, no, 10,000 times more than when ordinary true emperors condensed the laws of the world. Blood Devil Venerable stared in Chu Fengmian's direction with a shocked expression. The pouring power of the heavens and earth made it impossible for them to see the situation inside. However, they could all feel the power of the heavens and earth. This was especially true for Blood Devil Venerable. In order to become a true emperor, he had watched a few true emperors condense the laws of the world. However, the origin world they opened was not even 1,000th of the heavens and earth compared to Chu Fengmian. Blood Devil Venerable didn't dare to imagine just how much power of the heavens and earth was there. How terrifying! How can this person be so strong? Do I still want to be his enemy? The great exalted lord had been unconvinced after being defeated by Chu Fengmian, and he had wanted to fight Chu Fengmian again. But now, the two of them were kneeling on the ground, scared to death. This kind of power was something they couldn't even imagine in their wildest dreams. A full 2 hours passed. During this time, the amount of heavens and earth that poured out from the origin world was unknown. 90% of the heavens and earth's power was devoured by the divine tree. Compared to Chu Fengmian, the divine tree source of power was much stronger. After all, the divine tree used to be a terrifying existence on the same level as a connate divine beast. After devouring the heavens and earth's power, the divine tree size didn't change at all. However, golden runes appeared on its leaves. These runes were the laws of the world. Right now, the divine tree had begun to transform from mortal to connate. Even fruits were forming under the divine tree's crown. 2 hours are almost up. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the origin world. The origin world was only open for 2 hours. No matter how great one's ability was, they couldn't extend the time. Chu Fengmian had used the divine tree to forcibly open the origin world. This was already a shocking matter. In these 2 hours, Chu Fengmian had obtained incomparably great benefits. His body had been completely transformed into connate power. The laws of the world had been integrated into every part of Chu Fengmian's body. Even the divine vein had been completely transformed. It had reached the limit of Chu Fengmian's devouring ability. If he continued, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to bear it. Laws of the world condense. The laws of the world in Chu Fengmian's body were all activated at this moment and began to circulate continuously. The violent power hit Chu Fengmian's body again and again, trying to make him explode. Devouring so much heavens and earth's power was something that no sovereign dared to dream of. At this time, the power had already reached its limit and couldn't bear it at all. But for Chu Fengmian, he could bear even the greatest impact. Chapter 1177. This was because Chu Fengmian still had a trump card in his hand, the divine tree. Chu Fengmian was the only one in the all heaven who had subdued the divine tree. Chu Fengmian's body had become one with the divine tree. It was beyond the scope of flesh and blood. No matter how great the impact was, Chu Fengmian could bear it. Divine tree, come back! Chu Fengmian roared. The divine tree heard Chu Fengmian's order and immediately returned to Chu Fengmian's body. When the divine tree returned to Chu Fengmian's body, its countless roots merged with Chu Fengmian's body again. Chu Fengmian's body was connected to the divine tree. The impact of the impact was unable to shake Chu Fengmian's body. On the contrary, under the impact, the world principles in Chu Fengmian's spirit vein became more and more solid. Gradually, it began to turn into a golden light. Now, Chu Fengmian's mind suddenly moved. The golden light in the spirit vein suddenly pulsed. At this moment, all the world principles were injected into the golden light and were all absorbed by the golden light. More and more world principles were swallowed, and the golden light continued to expand. The moment all the world principles were swallowed, the golden light began to solidify and turned into an ancient pattern, engraving into the deepest part of the spirit vein. Boom! A powerful aura shrouded Chu Fengmian's body. The moment the golden light entered Chu Fengmian's spirit vein, his strength underwent an earth-shattering change. At this moment, Chu Fengmian felt that he could mobilize the world principles with a wave of his hand. It was as if the world principles all belonged to Chu Fengmian. It was his own strength. This was the benefit of condensing world principles. After condensing world principles, Chu Fengmian was no longer a cultivator, but an emperor master. Even though he had not yet stepped into the emperor realm, after condensing the world principles, Chu Fengmian was already a true emperor master, the master of the world. Is this the power of an emperor master? The world principles that truly belong to me? Chu Fengmian waved his hand in the air, and the space in front of him was torn apart by his palm. Chu Fengmian did not even use the slightest bit of his bloodline power in this palm strike. His pure strength was enough to tear the space apart. The power of this palm strike was enough to shatter an enormous mountain range. This law of mine is a full 1,000 feet long. How terrifying! Chu Fengmian's mind flickered as he observed the worldly principles of the holy range. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. The worldly principles condensed by ordinary sovereigns were about 10 feet long, and the first worldly principle condensed could reach up to 15 feet. 60 feet was the limit. Those who could reach 10 feet were geniuses with boundless prospects. For example, Lu Daojun, whom Chu Fengmian had killed before, had a portion of the worldly laws in his body given to his saber spirit. However, the worldly principle condensed by Chu Fengmian was a full 1,000 feet long. Although Chu Fengmian only had one law of heaven and earth, compared to those sovereigns who had condensed 100 laws of heaven and earth, Chu Fengmian's law of heaven and earth was not weak at all. This was all thanks to the divine tree. Without the divine tree, Chu Fengmian's physical body would only be able to condense 100 feet long law of heaven and earth, no matter how monstrous his talent was. If there were more, Chu Fengmian would probably be stuffed to death. However, because of the divine tree, Chu Fengmian's body was able to withstand the impact time and time again. In the end, he was able to condense a law of heaven and earth that had never appeared since ancient times. Even the ancient sovereigns and all heaven's experts had never condensed a law of heaven and earth that was 100 feet long. Moreover, the ancestral dragon supreme sword, Titanic K divine sword, and Emperor Jar had also begun to undergo earth-shaking changes after devouring the power of heaven and earth. The Emperor Jar did not change much. After all, it used to be an extreme-grade immortal weapon. It was only damaged now, but its grade was still there. It was almost impossible for it to be upgraded. However, the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and Titanic K Divine Sword, two heaven-grade spiritual weapons, had begun to slowly transform after devouring the power of heaven and earth. Although they were still far from becoming extreme-grade immortal weapons, the two spiritual swords had begun to transcend the category of heaven-grade spiritual weapons and were developing into extreme-grade immortal weapons. In this way, the two spiritual swords had a chance to be upgraded to extreme-grade immortal weapons if they continued to be nurtured. Chu Fengmian had obtained the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword when he had just stepped into the Divine Power Realm. It had accompanied Chu Fengmian and killed countless experts along the way. The Titanic K Divine Sword was also a spiritual sword that once belonged to the Master of Sword Principle. Chu Fengmian had deep feelings for these two spiritual swords, and he did not want to change them unless he had no other choice. Now that the two spiritual swords had the hope of being upgraded to extreme-grade immortal weapons, Chu Fengmian was very happy. As long as he nurtured them well, once they were upgraded to extreme-grade immortal weapons, they would be enough for him to use no matter how strong he was. The commotion caused by this is not small. However, the power of heaven and earth has blocked everything in the surroundings. Even if others notice that someone is condensing the law of heaven and earth, they won't know it's me. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. The moment the law of heaven and earth was about to disappear, he disappeared in an instant. The place where Chu Fengmian was standing earlier, the ancient snake chamber of commerce had turned into ruins. It had been completely destroyed by the power of heaven and earth. The power of heaven and earth was extremely domineering. If one could not control it, they would be killed. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to destroy the ancient snake chamber of commerce himself, but it seemed like there was no need for that now. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's figure came to a void not far away. Master! Upon seeing Chu Fengmian's return, Sovereign Blood Demon, Jin Yuan, and Pine Tree knelt on the ground together and greeted him respectfully. Congratulations, Master, for condensing the law of heaven and earth. Although the three of them looked calm on the surface, their hearts were already in a state of turmoil. The paramount realm was condensing the law of heaven and earth. This was simply breaking the rules of the world. It seemed like all the rules were meaningless in Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's existence was born to break the rules. Common sense could no longer be inferred from Chu Fengmian's body, especially now that Chu Fengmian's strength was countless times stronger than Lu Daojun. Chapter 1178. Ouyang Li had already been suppressed by the Blood Devil Reverend. Now, he was looking at Chu Fengmian, trembling uncontrollably. "Spare me, young Master Chu, spare me. I know how powerful you are. As long as you spare my life, I can bring you to the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's treasury. Our treasury contains the wealth accumulated over several tens of thousands of years. I'm the only one who knows about Lu Daojun's death. As long as you spare my life, all of this wealth will belong to you." Ouyang Li trembled as he looked at Chu Fengmian. He no longer dared to fight back in front of Chu Fengmian. Not to mention that Chu Fengmian had killed Lu Daojun in front of so many people. The commotion caused by him condensing the laws of heaven and earth was enough to scare him to death. However, he still played a trick and told Chu Fengmian about the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's treasury. The meaning behind his words was clear. If Chu Fengmian didn't spare him, he wouldn't be able to obtain the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's treasury. After saying that, Ouyang Li observed Chu Fengmian. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian wouldn't be tempted by the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's treasury. However, Chu Fengmian's expression disappointed him. Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change at all. Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang Li as if he was looking at a dead man. "Kill him," Chu Fengmian said calmly. Chu Fengmian had yet to avenge Ouyang Li for scheming against Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was someone who clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. If someone treated him well, Chu Fengmian would repay him in double. However, if someone wanted to harm him, Chu Fengmian would also repay him in blood. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengmian's order, the exalted blood demon didn't hesitate. He raised his hand and sent a palm strike toward Ouyang Li. You don't want to obtain the ancient Snake Merchant Guild's treasury?" Ouyang Li didn't expect Chu Fengmian to kill him directly. He shouted, "You? Apart from me, no one else knows about it. If you kill me, you won't be able to obtain it anymore. Do you think you have the qualifications to bargain with me?" Chu Fengmian looked at Ouyang Li as if he was looking at an idiot. He had killed Lu Daojun, so naturally, he had taken all of his memories. Chu Fengmian knew the location of the treasury even better than Ouyang Li. "Do it." Chu Fengmian glared at Blood Demon Lord and shouted coldly. Hearing those words, the Blood Demon Reverend no longer hesitated. His palm landed on Ouyang Li's body, shattering it into pieces. "The three of you, go and find out about the Holy Dragon Mystery Realm. Chu Fengmian will come to find you in a few days." Chu Fengmian looked at the Blood Devil Reverend and the other two and instructed them. Then, his figure slowly disappeared, turning into a ray of light and entering the depths of the void. Now that Chu Fengmian's strength had reached such a high level that it was even stronger than what Chu Fengmian had predicted, it was indeed time for him to go to the Holy Dragon Mystic Realm. Han Yueli and Luo, she were both in the Sacred Dragon Mystery Realm. Chu Fengmian had to go and find them. Venerable Blood Demon, Jin Yuan, and Qing Song had a much wider network than Chu Feng. Naturally, the task of searching for information about the Sacred Dragon Mystery Realm would be left to the three of them. On the other side, Chu Fengmian had something else to do. He had to go to the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's treasury. The ancient Serpent Chamber of Commerce was the biggest chamber of commerce in the ancient Serpent Empire. Nobody knew how much wealth it had accumulated over the past tens of thousands of years. Chu Fengmian had killed Lu Daojun, so he had clearly memorized the location of this treasury. His body was like a ray of light, shuttling through the void. After a full day, Chu Fengmian arrived at a dark and empty void. This was the deepest part of the void. The spiritual energy there was thin, and almost no experts would choose to step into this place. It was a dead zone. In Lu Daojun's memory, this was the location of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's treasury. Open! Chu Fengmian was in the air, striking out with his palm. In an instant, the space in front of Chu Fengmian rippled. A spatial storm swept across the area. Chu Fengmian stood in the same place with his hands behind his back, allowing the spatial storm to hit him. The violent spatial storm could not harm Chu Fengmian's body at all. The sacred tree had obtained more power of heaven and earth in the origin world than Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's physical body had reached an unimaginable level. His physical body had surpassed the category of flesh and blood. Even the strongest demon god could not compare to Chu Fengmian's physical body. His physical body was actually close to that of an innate divine beast. Innate divine beasts were the same as the sacred tree. They were born from the power of heaven and earth. Now that Chu Fengmian's physical body had merged with the sacred tree, his physical body was the sacred tree. Only an innate divine beast could surpass Chu Fengmian's physical body. As for other martial artists, all martial artists who cultivated the way of body tempering paled in comparison to Chu Fengmian. The spatial storm lasted for a full 2 hours before it gradually disappeared. The moment the spatial storm disappeared, a space-time passage slowly formed. This was the location of the ancient snake chamber of commerce's treasury. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and entered. The scene in front of him began to change drastically. The treasury of the ancient snake chamber of commerce was hidden in a small world in the depths of the void. Upon entering, one could see countless treasures at a glance. Spiritual stones piled up like mountains, and countless spiritual herbs were neatly placed together. In the center of the treasury, there was a shelf with 1,000 spiritual herbs. Each of these spiritual herbs had reached the level of a sacred herb. 1,000 sacred herbs were displayed in front of Chu Fengmian. The ancient snake chamber of commerce is really rich. 1,000 sacred herbs. I'm afraid that all the chambers of commerce in the 9 regions combined might not even have one. Looking at these sacred herbs, Chu Fengmian's expression changed slightly. Even with his knowledge, this was the first time he had seen 1,000 sacred herbs placed together in front of Chu Fengmian. These sacred herbs were extremely high-grade sacred herbs. If they were used to refine elixirs, who knew how many sacred elixirs they could refine? Chu Fengmian was stunned for a moment, then suddenly grabbed at the air. These stalks of sacred medicine immediately flew out and were sucked into Chu Fengmian's empty ring. The ancient snake chamber of commerce had been destroyed by Chu Fengmian. Everything in the treasury was ownerless. Of course, Chu Fengmian would not be polite. He took all the sacred herbs into the empty ring. Chapter 1179. This Milky Way, which looked like a stream of light, lay quietly behind the wooden frame. On top of it, there were specks of starry sky that were constantly shining. However, with Chu Fengmian's gaze, he could clearly see that this Milky Way was made up of streaks of extremely sharp sword chi intertwined together to form this Milky Way. Supreme Sword Chi. This is Supreme Sword Chi. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. These streaks of sharp sword chi were the same supreme sword chi that Chu Fengmian had seen in the sinkhole sky. It was the supreme treasure of the sword sect, the top sword sect. In the sinkhole sky, Chu Fengmian had obtained 400 streaks of supreme sword chi. The countless sword techniques recorded in it had also brought Chu Fengmian great benefits. However, Chu Fengmian had never encountered it again. He did not expect that supreme sword chi would appear in the ancient monster continent and be collected by the ancient snake merchant guild. This supreme sword chi should have been brought out by someone before the 9 domains were sealed. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and understood. In fact, the 9 zones had not declined to this extent in the distant past. At that time, the 9 zones had passages that led to various continents and worlds. That was the era when the 9 zones were truly famous. Later on, when the 9 zones declined, the passages were also destroyed. As a result, the people of the 9 zones could not leave unless they crossed the starry sky. Chu Fengmian's arrival in the ancient monster continent was actually an accident. Chu Fengmian broke through the void and happened to encounter the void turbulence, which brought him here. 600 streaks. A total of 600 streaks of supreme sword chi. Chu Fengmian observed for a moment and saw that the Milky Way was the condensation of 600 streaks of supreme sword chi. These 600 streaks of supreme sword chi seemed to have been suppressed by an expert. That was why it was so calm now. Chu Fengmian had seen the power of supreme sword chi when he was in the sinkhole sky. The condensed sword light was enough to kill martial artists. Obviously, it was an expert of the ancient snake merchant guild. Perhaps it was Lu Daojun who had suppressed it. There were very few sword cultivators in the ancient monster continent, and most of them were from the Five Mountain Sword sect. It seemed that the supreme sword chi had not found a buyer yet. That was why it had been suppressed and kept in the treasury. Now it had benefited Chu Fengmian. Great! Chu Fengmian looked at the Milky Way, channeled his spiritual power, and blasted a palm in the air. The restriction of this long river of flowing light was shattered by a single palm. These 600 supreme sword auras immediately awakened. They sensed the aura of Chu Feng's body and immediately soared to one side. They transformed into 7-colored sword radiance and slashed toward him. Although this supreme sword chi was not strong, its sword techniques were at the peak of perfection. Even a quasi-emperor would suffer a loss if they came. But now, Chu Fengmian could even kill true emperors, let alone 600 strands of sword energy. Suppress the Milky Way light's spiritual chi's ways. That word light. It, by Fengmian, it. An enormous pressure enveloped the 7-colored sword light. The word suppress was like a huge mountain that was suppressing the 600 supreme sword auras. No matter how sharp the sword light was, it was unable to break through the word suppress. Come! Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion in the air, and the 600 supreme sword chis were immediately collected into his body. The moment it entered Chu Fengmian's body, it suddenly resonated with the original 400 supreme sword energies in Chu Fengmian's body. 1,000 supreme sword energies turned into a small golden sword and revolved around Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could feel that this small golden sword was no weaker than a true emperor. It was even stronger than Lu Daojun. Good, 1,000 streaks of sword energy. My sword technique will take another step forward. The sharpness of the sword energy wasn't the most important thing for Chu Fengmian. What he needed was the sword techniques recorded in the Milky Way. The integration of these swordsmanship was enough to make Chu Fengmian's 9 regions swordsmanship reach a higher level. Supreme Sword Chi, Supreme Sword Chi, Golden Sword Chi. That's 1,000 streaks of sword energy. The instant Chu Fengmian collected the Supreme Sword Chi, a rumbling sound suddenly rang out. 7 to 8 figures suddenly rushed into the treasury. One of the old men was staring at the swordless chi beside Chu Fengmian as he shouted loudly, "Your Highness the Sixth Prince, this supreme sword energy is said to be the most precious treasure of the number 1 sword sect of the 9 realms, the swordless sect. It records the most profound sword arts. If you obtain these 1,000 strands of supreme sword energy, even the old fogies of the Five Mountain Sword sect will beg you for sword arts." The old man stared at the swordless sword chi as he spoke to a red-clothed man beside him. What? Supreme sword chi? I've read about it in the ancient scrolls before the decline of the 9 realms. A total of 3,000 streaks of sword energy, more precious than a supreme immortal weapon. The man in red stared at Chu Fengmian with a murderous glint in his eyes. Lu Daojun, that trash is dead. I didn't expect someone else to enter the treasury first. That's easy. You're just a little guy. It's an honor for the 6th prince to offer the treasures he needs. I'll make him hand them over. The old man who spoke just now suddenly looked at Chu Fengmian and said arrogantly, "Kid, kneel down and offer up all the treasures you've obtained. The person in front of you is the 6th prince of the heavenly Peng Empire. If you offer up your treasures and kneel down to submit to the 6th prince, you'll benefit immeasurably in the future." As the old man spoke, the others also spread out and began to take action to collect the treasures in the treasury. This kind of behavior simply didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes at all, treating him as if he didn't exist. Heavenly Peng Empire? The 6th prince? Chu Fengmian didn't expect that someone else would come to the treasury. It seemed that the ancient snake merchant guild's treasury had been targeted long ago. It was just that Lu Daojun was there, so no one could obtain it. Now that Lu Daojun was dead, these people were eager to have a go. Even the people of the heavenly Peng Empire wanted to get involved. However, Even a prince of the heavenly Peng Empire was nothing in front of Chu Fengmian. Chapter 1180. Chu Fengmian suddenly took a step forward and waved his hand in the air. The experts who intended to take the treasures in the treasury were all sent flying with a palm strike. The Yao gods from the heavenly Peng Empire were all forced to take several steps back. They looked at Chu Fengmian with extremely cold eyes. "Brat, are you courting death? His Highness the Sixth Prince is merciful and has given you a chance. You don't know how to cherish it. Today you're digging your own grave." The old man stared at Chu Fengmian and suddenly roared. He clawed at Chu Fengmian in the air. The moment he clawed at Chu Fengmian, his hands instantly turned into two eagle claws. A gale swept out and attacked. "You still dare to attack me?" Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He had originally planned to throw these people out. However, this old man was looking for a killing move. Since they dared to attack, they couldn't blame Chu Fengmian. A pair of eagle claws. "I'll smash your claws." Chu Fengmian suddenly clenched his fist and punched at the old man. Rumble. His seemingly ordinary punch blasted out. Just the shockwave alone was enough to shatter countless gale. At the same time, the enormous fist wind blasted at the old man and directly punched at his eagle claws. Crack! The old man was caught somewhat unprepared. By the time he wanted to retreat, it was already too late. The power of the punch blasted at his eagle claws, shattering them and turning them into a bloody mess. What? The other Yao god from the heavenly Peng Empire were stunned when they saw this scene. This old man was the Sixth Prince's trusted aide. He was considered an outstanding figure among the quasi-emperors. He had even killed quasi-emperors before. Now that he had attacked Chu Fengmian, he was actually defeated so easily. This was especially true for his eagle claws. They were transformed from his true body and had been refined for an unknown period of time. They were even tougher than heaven-grade spirit artifacts. But now, with a single punch from Chu Fengmian, they were all shattered. The power of Chu Fengmian's punch was simply terrifying to the extreme. It was enough to completely crush quasi-emperors. Was this something a paramount realm cultivator could unleash? In the eyes of quasi-emperors, paramount realm cultivators were no different from ants. They absolutely couldn't imagine the consequences. Unless this wasn't an ordinary paramount realm cultivator. Half-step sovereign. You're a half-step sovereign. The old man cried out miserably after his claws were destroyed. You actually dared to destroy my claws. You're finished. Even if you are a half-step Emperor Realm Master, you will die today. His Highness the Sixth Prince will avenge me. His pair of eagle claws was his most precious treasure. He had refined them for hundreds of years and was incomparably tough. But now, they were directly shattered by Chu Fengmian. It was as if his hundreds of years of hard work had been destroyed in an instant. Even a half-step Fengmian could not be a half-step sovereign. So what if he's a half-step sovereign? Today, the 8 quasi-emperors were more than enough to kill Chu Fengmian. Die. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed. He stared at the retreating old man and suddenly grabbed him. The old man, who had retreated a few li and thought he was safe, suddenly paled. An incomparably powerful force seemed to want to take him away. "Damn it! How dare you touch my people?" The Sixth Prince of the heavenly Peng Empire couldn't hold back and loudly ordered. "Attack! Kill this brat!" Yes. The other 6 quasi-emperors of the heavenly Peng Empire attacked together. Their power came from the same source. When they used it, they were incomparably well-coordinated. Surging spiritual energy turned into an incomparably huge heavenly Peng in the air and charged at Chu Fengmian. The 6 quasi-emperors of the heavenly Peng Empire attacked together. The heavenly Peng's power was close to that of a true emperor. No wonder they weren't afraid of a half-step sovereign like Chu Fengmian. But Chu Fengmian wasn't a half-step sovereign. He could condense the laws of heaven and earth. He was already a true emperor. Moreover, Chu Fengmian didn't even need to use his full strength to deal with these people. Battle Dragon Claw. The moment the heavenly Peng attacked, the Battle Dragon Claw formed above Chu Fengmian's head and ruthlessly slammed into the heavenly Peng's body. This heavenly Peng was formed by the 6 quasi-emperors of the heavenly Peng Empire. It had the power of 6 quasi-emperors. But when the battle dragon claw came down, the heavenly Peng's body suddenly exploded. Following a heart-wrenching scream, it was forcibly shattered. In an instant, the heavenly Peng formed by the 6 quasi-emperors was easily destroyed by Chu Fengmian. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also condensed spiritual energy and directly grabbed the old man who attacked earlier. No matter what the old man did, he couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian's grasp. He was held in Chu Fengmian's hand as if he was a chicken. The crowd almost fainted when they saw this scene. This was a quasi-emperor. In the ancient monster continent, ordinary true emperors rarely made a move. Quasi-emperors were the strongest experts that ordinary people could see. This kind of high and mighty figure that everyone looked up to was now held in Chu Fengmian's hand without even the slightest ability to struggle. This was especially true when Chu Fengmian just waved his hand and directly shattered the heavenly Peng formed by the 6 quasi-emperors. This kind of power was simply unheard of. What do you want to do? Do you dare to kill me? I am a marquis of the heavenly Peng Empire. If you kill me, you will become an enemy of the heavenly Peng Empire. The old man was extremely terrified when he was held in Chu Fengmian's hand. He had never encountered such a powerless situation in the hands of a person. All of his methods were like child's play in front of Chu Fengmian. His only hope now was that Chu Fengmian would be afraid of the heavenly Peng Empire and not dare to kill him. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Chu Fengmian had even killed the prince of the Divine Dragon Empire and the 8 imperial clans of the ancient Serpent Empire. Killing a marquis of the heavenly Peng Empire was nothing. The heavenly Peng Empire? This Chu Fengmian has never taken the puny heavenly Peng Empire seriously. Chu Fengmian grabbed the old man's body, and a colorless flame burned in Chu Fengmian's hand. Pure, young heavenly flame. The pure young heavenly flame corroded the old man's body bit by bit. The pure young heavenly flame was enough to burn the old man's flesh and bones bit by bit. Chapter 1181. The reason why Chu Fengmian didn't kill the old man earlier was to let these people know the consequences of opposing him. His miserable shrieks lasted for a full minute before the old man's body was completely incinerated by the pure sun-sky flame. Nothing was left of the old man after the pure young sky fire burned him to ashes. It was as if he had never appeared in this world. However, his screams were heard by the 6th prince and the other 6 demon immortals. Their hearts turned cold. A quasi-emperor was tortured to death in front of them. This was something they had never seen before. Even the 6th prince didn't know what to say as he looked at Chu Fengmian. He pondered for a long time before slowly speaking. We didn't know that the treasury had an owner. Sorry for disturbing you today. Let's go. With that, the 6th prince shot a look at the 6 quasi-emperors and demon gods beside him and said, he could see that even if the 7 of them worked together, they wouldn't be Chu Fengmian's match. It was better to retreat for now and wait for the future. However, the 6th prince would remember what happened today. Their heavenly Peng Empire had experts who could kill a true emperor, let alone someone comparable to a true emperor. They would gather experts to deal with Chu Fengmian once they returned. You want to leave? Chu Fengmian suddenly laughed at the 6th prince's words. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and a small golden sword flew out, blocking the entrance of the treasury. The power of the small golden sword was comparable to a true emperor. It sealed off the path of retreat for the heavenly Peng Empire. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and said coldly, none of you will leave today. Today, none of you shall leave. All of you shall die here. Chu Fengmian's powerful spiritual energy swept out. The battle dragon claw condensed again and slashed at the heavenly Peng Empire's group. Chu Fengmian wasn't the type to let a tiger return to the mountain. Now that the 6th prince knew that Chu Fengmian had obtained the treasury of the ancient Serpent Merchant Guild, he would turn around to deal with Chu Fengmian. That was something that Chu Fengmian knew very well. Thus, Chu Fengmian decided to go all out and kill all of them. In any case, Chu Fengmian had already provoked enough enemies. One more heavenly Peng Empire wouldn't make a difference. Not good. Let's join hands and charge out. As long as you charge out, You can use the Jade Talisman to call for reinforcements from our heavenly Peng Empire. The sixth prince didn't expect Chu Fengmian to be so ruthless. He didn't care about their identities and wanted to kill them all. Originally, the sixth prince had planned to use his status to threaten Chu Fengmian. After he had retreated unscathed, he would find trouble with Chu Fengmian. But now, Chu Fengmian's actions had ruined his plan. They had witnessed the power of the Battle Dragon Claw. Even a boundary emperor would die under the attack of the Battle Dragon Claw. Their only chance now was to escape. Once they escaped from the ancient snake trading company's treasury, they would be able to enter the depths of the void. Once they reached the depths of the void, it would be impossible for Chu Fengmian to catch them regardless of how powerful he was. When the six boundary emperor demonic beasts heard the sixth prince's order, they attacked almost simultaneously. The surging spiritual energy transformed into a long river and directly bombarded the small golden sword. Crack! The small golden sword was forced to take a step back after receiving the power of the attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the sixth prince suddenly turned into a beam of light and flew out. To him, these boundary emperor demonic beasts were his slaves. He could abandon them as he wished, as long as he could escape with his life. Just as the sixth prince's ray of light was about to escape, Chu Fengmian suddenly moved. Chu Fengmian slowly raised his hand and pointed it in front of him. A huge vortex suddenly condensed. The power of this vortex was enough to devour everything in the world. All the spiritual energy in the surroundings were mercilessly devoured by this vortex. Before this vortex, the faces of the six boundary emperor demonic beasts changed. Their bodies were under great pressure and were about to be devoured by this vortex. The vortex's target was not even them. Most of the vortex's power was enveloping the sixth prince's body. As the vortex's power continued to increase, the sixth prince's ray of light came to a halt in the air. It was not that he wanted to stop, but under the great suction force, no matter how fast the sixth prince's ray of light was, he could not take another step forward. No one can leave in front of me. Come back. Chu Fengmian suddenly clawed his hand, and the vortex's power suddenly increased tenfold. The sixth prince's body could no longer withstand the vortex's devouring power and flew toward Chu Fengmian. In an instant, he landed in Chu Fengmian's palm and was tightly grasped by Chu Fengmian. Damn it! Skyrock true body. Break! Being held in the palm of Chu Fengmian's hand was a great humiliation to the sixth prince. He no longer intended to hide his strength and suddenly went all out. In Chu Fengmian's palm, the sixth prince's body began to expand rapidly. Feathers grew from his body, and he turned into a heavenly Peng. The heavenly Peng clan was said to have inherited the bloodline of one of the innate divine beasts, the golden-winged Great Peng. They were not inferior to the Tianlong clan. The moment the sixth prince reverted to his true form, his body's power increased countless times. He suddenly flapped his wings and created a hurricane containing great power. He wanted to escape from the sky, devour's secret arts, devouring power. If you had the bloodline of a real golden-winged Great Peng, you might have a chance to escape from this sky devour's secret art. Unfortunately, you only have the heavenly Peng bloodline. Seeing the sixth prince's attempt to escape, Chu Fengmian's mind moved and increased the power of the Sky Devourer's secret art. No matter how the sixth prince struggled, he could not escape from the Sky Devourer's secret art. Once enveloped by the Sky Devourer's secret art, even a true emperor would find it difficult to escape, let alone a mere quasi-emperor like the sixth prince. A quasi-emperor was inferior to an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? How can he be so strong? The sixth prince felt despair as he felt the power of the Sky Devourer's secret art. He originally thought that with his strength, even if he couldn't deal with Chu Fengmian, it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape unscathed. But now, he found that he was wrong. Chu Fengmian's strength was unfathomable. The stronger he became, the stronger Chu Fengmian became 10 times stronger. Chapter 1182. Sixth Prince, do you still want me to submit now? Chu Fengmian asked with a faint smile as he looked at the sixth prince. At this moment, the sixth prince's complexion was already ashen. Even if he were given 10,000 chances, he would never have guessed that this would happen. A paramount realm martial artist was enough to completely crush them. This was something that was simply incomprehensible. Chu Feng Mian, I admit defeat this time. However, you should know that I am a prince of the Heavenly Rock Empire. My father is the Heavenly Rock Emperor. Do you dare to kill me? The sixth prince sneered as he stared at Chu Feng Mian. Even if he was forced into a desperate situation, he still had his final trump card, his identity. He was a prince of the Heavenly Rock Empire, the son of the Heavenly Rock Emperor. A prince of the Heavenly Rock Empire was much more honorable than a prince of the Divine Dragon Empire. There were hundreds of princes in the Divine Dragon Empire. As long as one's bloodline was sufficiently pure, one could become a prince of the Divine Dragon Empire. However, all the princes of the Heavenly Rock Empire were blood relatives of the Heavenly Rock Emperor. Killing any one of them would incur the wrath of the Heavenly Rock Emperor. It was precisely because of this that the sixth prince dared to come to the ancient Serpent Empire without fear. Even if he encountered an expert, he did not believe that anyone would dare to kill him. My father, the Heavenly Rock Emperor, is here. Even if you have a powerful backer, you will definitely die. I'll give you a chance now. Let me go, and I'll write off today's matter in exchange for 3 things. The sixth prince stared at Chu Feng Mian and laughed loudly. However, before he could finish his sentence, the battle dragon's claw suddenly swept across. The sixth prince didn't even have time to react before his body was shattered by the battle dragon's claw. The heaven-devouring secret technique devoured all his blood essence, turning it into pure spiritual energy that merged with Chu Fengmian's body. The sixth prince was dead, with all his blood essence devoured. Even his father, the Heavenly Rock Emperor, would not be able to revive the sixth prince. Even in death, the sixth prince did not understand that he had made a fatal mistake. Even Chu Feng Mian would never be threatened by others. Those who threatened him had to die. You killed the sixth prince? The other demon gods and quasi-emperors looked at Chu Feng Mian with madness in their eyes. Even if the ancient serpent empires by clan or Mo clan came here and defeated the sixth prince, they wouldn't dare to kill him. No one could withstand the fury of the Heavenly Rock Emperor. However, Chu Feng Mian did not care about that at all. He suddenly attacked and killed the sixth prince. You talk too much. Chu Feng Mian glanced at the boundary Emperor Yao gods and slowly struck out with his palm. Your master is dead. You should all be buried with him. Rumble. As Chu Fengmian's palm swept across, the bodies of these quasi-emperor demon gods exploded one after another. They were all killed in midair. Brat, you're finished. You killed the sixth prince, and the Heavenly Rock Emperor will arrive soon. That will be the day you die. One of the slain Yao gods stared at Chu Fengmian in his final moments and suddenly laughed. You'll be buried with us very soon. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. At the same time, he suddenly looked at the void in front of him. Chu Fengmian could feel that a terrifying existence was about to descend. Rumble. In an instant, the surrounding void came to a standstill. A vast amount of spiritual energy condensed in the void. It was as if a supreme expert was about to descend. Chu Fengmian could feel that this power was transmitted from a distant place in time and space. A terrifying existence had opened up a tunnel and transmitted its spiritual energy to the demon monarch. At the same time, Chu Fengmian could vaguely see that the person who made this move was a middle-aged man sitting on a tall throne. There was no anger on his face. His eyes were especially filled with murderous intent when he stared at Chu Fengmian. Countless experts were kneeling before his throne. Even true emperors were kneeling before him. The Heavenly Rock Emperor. Chu Fengmian instantly guessed the identity of this middle-aged man. Only the 3 demon kings of the ancient monster continent could have such power. After the sixth prince, his son, was killed by Chu Fengmian, the Celestial Rock Emperor could no longer restrain his anger, even though he was thousands of miles away from Chu Fengmian. Now, he wanted to open a tunnel and gather spiritual energy to kill Chu Fengmian. The moment this spiritual energy was transmitted, it gradually transformed into the appearance of a middle-aged man wearing a royal robe. It was the Celestial Rock Emperor's appearance. The Celestial Rock Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian. Without wasting any time, he suddenly clawed at Chu Fengmian. This claw contained specks of golden light. Chu Fengmian knew that this was the claw of a golden-winged great rock. The Celestial Rock Emperor clearly possessed the bloodline of the golden-winged great rock. In an instant, he could use it to kill Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's expression was solemn. The Celestial Rock Emperor before him wasn't an incarnation of himself, but a manifestation of his power. Although Chu Fengmian knew that this was only the power of a single attack, the power of this attack was terrifying to the extreme. The Celestial Rock Emperor's strength was even more terrifying than Sun Ba's. A 6 tribulation true emperor? A 7 tribulation true emperor? Chu Fengmian couldn't guess the Celestial Rock Emperor's strength. He crossed thousands of miles and used his spiritual energy to attack Chu Fengmian. The Celestial Rock Emperor's true strength was terrifying to the extreme. It seems like killing the 6th prince has caused a lot of trouble. I didn't expect the Celestial Rock Emperor to take action. Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely serious. His opponent was one of the supreme existences of the ancient monster continent, the Celestial Rock Emperor. Even if this attack crossed thousands of miles, it was still enough to destroy everything. The power of the divine tree. Soaring serpent transformation. Gigantic sword ray. Use all of them. Chu Fengmian roared loudly. Almost all of his trump cards erupted at this moment. This was the only time the Celestial Rock Emperor would attack. Even the Celestial Rock Emperor couldn't unleash an attack that crossed thousands of miles multiple times. Chu Fengmian only needed to withstand this attack. He simply didn't need to hold back. Everything he had erupted to protect Chu Fengmian's body. The roots of the sacred tree had taken root in every corner of Chu Fengmian's body, binding him tightly together. Chapter 1183. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the claw was right above Chu Fengmian's head. The claw's power had completely locked onto Chu Fengmian's aura. Even if he were to flee to the ends of the earth, he wouldn't be able to escape. In Chu Fengmian's body, his strength had been raised to the extreme. At the same time, the divine tree was guarding Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian also recalled the 1,000 strands of supreme sword energy to protect his body. The Celestial Rock King's furious attack couldn't be underestimated. The slightest carelessness could result in Chu Fengmian's death. At the same time, Chu Fengmian secretly activated the power of the Mortal Emperor Jar as a trump card. Chu Fengmian even thought of using the blood-slaying demon sword, but he firmly suppressed this thought. The first use of the blood-slaying demon sword left Chu Fengmian half dead. According to Xian, this was because it was his first time using it. The more he used the bloodlust demon sword, the stronger the backlash would be. Before he truly had the qualifications to wield the bloodlust demon sword, forcefully using it was tantamount to courting death. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Chu Fengmian suppressed this thought. Crack! The claw's power finally arrived. A monstrous amount of spirit energy immediately bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. In the blink of an eye, the countless formations in front of Chu Fengmian were shattered. These formations that could withstand the attacks of true emperors were completely useless in front of the Celestial Rock King. Next, it directly bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's body was his strongest defense. It had been tempered by the divine stones of ice and fire, reinforced by the primordial Dragon King physique, and even had the protection of the divine tree. In terms of toughness, it even surpassed a heaven-level spirit treasure. Chu Fengmian had pinned all his hopes on his physical body in order to withstand this claw attack. Boom! The claw's power bombarded Chu Fengmian's chest. His body, which couldn't be damaged by the attacks of ordinary true emperors, was easily torn apart. Surging blood energy gushed out. For a moment, Chu Fengmian's mind was under immense pressure. This was really just a prelude. Following the bombardment of this claw, Chu Fengmian's physical body was shattering bit by bit. More than half of his body was almost destroyed. Power of the Tree of God. Restore. Chu Fengmian gritted his teeth and endured the excruciating pain. At the same time, he activated the power of the divine tree completely. The leaves on the divine tree began to shatter, turning into pure life force that entered Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's body began to recover bit by bit. Right now, Chu Fengmian was using the power of the divine tree to block the Heavenly Rock Emperor's attack. After Chu Fengmian had opened the origin world, the divine tree had devoured almost 90% of the power of the world. Now, all the stored power had erupted and transformed into the purest energy to repair Chu Fengmian's body. Even though Chu Fengmian's body would shatter wherever the golden claws came in contact with, his body would be reborn time and time again from the places of destruction. Undying and indestructible, no one can destroy me. I have been reborn. In this life, I will rule the world and stand at the peak of the world. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Startling sword lights emerged from his body and collided with the golden claws in the air. One could vaguely see a golden sharp claw going up against it. Although the golden claws were powerful, it was only the power of a single attack from the Heavenly Rock Emperor. It had crossed countless space-time and erupted with the most tyrannical attack. Now that Chu Fengmian's power was in a deadlock, the golden claw's power was constantly weakening. Good. This Heavenly Rock Emperor seems to be in an extremely distant space-time. His power is no longer enough. Chu Fengmian was keenly aware of this scene. At the same time, he completely condensed the sword intent of the sword god boundary. 1,000 supreme sword auras formed a terrifying sword array that surrounded the golden claws. Oomph! A cold snort suddenly resounded. Chu Fengmian noticed that the fury on the Heavenly Rock Emperor's face had become even more intense. He even slowly stood up from his huge throne. As the Heavenly Rock Emperor of the Heavenly Rock Empire, he had actually failed to deal with Chu Fengmian. This was simply humiliating. He looked at Chu Fengmian with an ice-cold gaze. However, Chu Fengmian was not afraid. If the Heavenly Rock Emperor had personally come, Chu Fengmian would naturally have had no choice but to retreat. However, the Heavenly Rock Emperor was currently thousands of miles away. Even if he could transmit his power, he was definitely not a match for Chu Fengmian. The Heavenly Rock Emperor's eyes seemed to be pondering the situation. Suddenly, the golden claws changed direction. They were no longer attacking Chu Fengmian. Instead, they suddenly clawed at the sky-devouring secret technique. This sudden change gave Chu Fengmian a fright. In a tenth of a second, Chu Fengmian understood what was going on. The golden claws bombarded the sky-devouring secret technique's target. It was none other than the Sixth Prince's spatial ring. The Sixth Prince's blood essence had already been devoured by Chu Fengmian. However, his spatial ring was left behind in the sky-devouring secret technique. Before Chu Fengmian could collect it, the Heavenly Rock Emperor attacked. The Heavenly Rock Emperor was actually planning to take the Sixth Prince's spatial ring away. Chu Fengmian's expression instantly changed. Although the Heavenly Rock Emperor's attack did not have much power left, it would still be enough to cause Chu Fengmian a lot of trouble in a bloody battle. At the very least, it would be enough to injure Chu Fengmian lightly. However, the Heavenly Rock Emperor did not plan to do that. Instead, he wanted to take the Sixth Prince's spatial ring away. There must be something hidden in this spatial ring. I can't let the Heavenly Rock Emperor take it away. Chu Fengmian instantly made his decision. His figure flashed, and he immediately arrived at the sky-devouring secret technique's location. He grabbed the Sixth Prince's spatial ring in his hand. The Sixth Prince's spatial ring definitely contained something that the Heavenly Rock Emperor cared about. That was why he wanted to obtain it so much. Since that was the case, Chu Fengmian could not let the Heavenly Rock Emperor obtain it. In any case, they had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. Chu Fengmian did not care anymore. Hand it over. An ancient, furious voice resounded in the sky. It was the Heavenly Rock Emperor. His voice was so furious that it caused the surrounding space to tremble. Chapter 1184. Venerable sovereigns were also divided into different levels, which were even crueler. Lu Daojun and the Heavenly Rock Emperor were both sovereigns, but Lu Daojun was not even an ant in front of the Heavenly Rock Emperor. The strength of a venerable emperor would increase by several times after passing a venerable emperor tribulation. This heavenly rock king might even be a terrifying character among 7 tribulations. Chu Fengmian couldn't fathom his true power. Just this strike alone was enough to almost kill Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian had not slain Liu Daojun and opened the origin world, allowing the power of the world to wash over him and increase his strength countless times over, the Golden Claw probably would have killed Chu Fengmian on the spot. Ordinary sovereigns did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of this heavenly rock emperor. Even sovereigns had to kneel before his throne. But what kind of person was Chu Fengmian? In his previous life, Chu Fengmian didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken, but he had seen countless people who were even stronger than the heavenly rock emperor. Moreover, the Chu Fengmian of this life had returned as a king. He was destined to destroy everything. Chu Fengmian was not the least bit afraid of facing the heavenly rock emperor's attack head-on, let alone the small amount of pressure coming from his body. "Get lost!" Chu Fengmian shouted at the sky. Chu Fengmian could clearly sense the heavenly rock emperor's fury in the distant void. As the heavenly rock emperor, a sovereign demon emperor, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? That golden claw directly clawed at Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian was already prepared. He took the 6 princes' spatial ring and unsheathed both the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword and the Titanic Gate godly sword. These 2 spiritual swords have been baptized by the power of heaven and earth, and their power had far surpassed before. The moment the sword was unsheathed, a dazzling sword light shot towards the golden claw. The 2 sword lights collided with the golden claws in midair. Boom! Under the 2 dazzling sword lights, the golden claw was directly shattered. It was shattered in the air and turned into countless pieces. At the moment when the golden claws were shattered, all of a sudden, countless flames appeared in the void. These burning flames were none other than the golden laws. The laws of heaven and earth were incessantly burning as a figure condensed within them. Burning the laws of heaven and earth to condense an incarnation? Chu Fengmian was shocked. He didn't expect the heavenly rock emperor to be so crazy. Chu Fengmian was Chu Fengmian? Fengmian? Was Fengmian fun? At most sovereigns at most, and Fengmian at Fengmian sovereigns at most. 3 or fun. Was Daojun Fengmian's emperor Fengmian. However, this heavenly rock emperor had burned dozens of natural laws in a single breath in order to condense an incarnation to deal with Chu Fengmian. Fengmian was to Fengmian. The heavenly rock emperor didn't pay such a great price just to kill Chu Fengmian. His status was enough to mobilize all the experts in the heavenly rock empire to kill Chu Fengmian. There were many emperors in the heavenly rock empire who could kill Chu Fengmian. There was no need for the heavenly rock emperor to waste so much effort. Ordinary sovereigns wouldn't be able to condense even one law of heaven and earth after 1,000 years. Although the heavenly rock emperor wasn't an ordinary sovereign, this was the result of several thousand years of hard work. There was only one goal for him to pay such a huge price: the 6th prince's empty ring. The heavenly rock emperor did not want the empty ring to fall into Chu Fengmian's hands. That was why he spent so much effort to burn the natural laws and condense an incarnation. Eyes of the golden rock. The moment the celestial rock emperor's incarnation was formed, his eyes suddenly opened, revealing a golden gaze. The golden gaze seemed to be probing Chu Fengmian's body in search of the empty ring that Chu Fengmian had hidden. Under the gaze of the heavenly rock emperor, Chu Fengmian's secrets were all seen by the heavenly rock emperor. The spatial ring hidden in the divine vein was also clearly seen by him. "Give it to me." In an instant, the celestial rock emperor's clone made a move and rushed towards Chu Fengmian. He grabbed Chu Fengmian's divine pulse, intending to take the 6th prince's empty ring. But at that moment, a smile appeared on Chu Fengmian's face. The moment the heavenly rock emperor's avatar reached for the divine vein, a golden light pierced through the world. The moment the 300-meter-long golden light appeared, the color of heaven and earth changed. What is this? World principles? How can they be so big? The Sky Rock Emperor was stunned when he saw the 300-meter-long law of the heavens and earth appear. He had never heard of such a huge law of the heavens and earth. He couldn't imagine that Chu Fengmian's body would contain world principles. World principles could only be condensed by those who had truly stepped into the emperor realm and become a true emperor. Chu Fengmian's strength was strange, but he was only a paramount realm cultivator after all. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be able to condense world principles. Just now, his Golden Rock Emperor's avatar didn't see world principles, so he wasn't prepared at all. He fiercely bombarded the world principles. This world principle could be said to be Chu Fengmian's most deeply hidden trump card. Apart from Chu Fengmian, no one else in history could condense world principles at the paramount realm. Because of this, even a knowledgeable Heavenly Rock Emperor couldn't react in time. As a result, his incarnation directly collided with the 100-meter-long law of heaven and earth. Rumble. The world principles collided, and a huge force swept through the entire space. The ancient snake chamber of commerce's treasury began to shatter under this bombardment. Even this small world was unable to withstand the collision of the laws of heaven and earth. Everything in the surroundings sank into the void. And in the heart of this void, Chu Fengmian was using world principles to bombard the Heavenly Rock Emperor's avatar again and again. The avatar that burned dozens of world principles was indeed very powerful. In a head-on clash, Chu Fengmian might not necessarily be his opponent. But Chu Fengmian deliberately used world principles to deal with the Heavenly Rock Emperor's avatar. Facing a direct collision of world principles, the avatar had no way to dodge and could only meet force with force. Chapter 1185. Boom! Boom! Every time they collided, the Sky Rock Emperor's clone would shatter. Streaks of golden light would be sent flying out of his body. Chu Fengmian knew that these rays of golden light were the laws of heaven and earth. Since he needed the laws of heaven and earth, he wouldn't be polite. He immediately used the sky-devouring secret technique to envelop the incarnation. The moment the laws of heaven and earth tried to fly out, they were enveloped by the sky-devouring secret technique and were completely devoured. I'll devour this incarnation as well. Chu Fengmian stared at the incarnation and laughed. When Chu Fengmian saw that the Heavenly Rock Emperor was about to ignite the laws of heaven and earth to condense his incarnation, he came up with this plan. He purposely pretended to be weak in order to lure the Heavenly Rock Emperor's incarnation closer to the divine vein. Although the Heavenly Rock Emperor's golden rock eye was divine, it could hide in the divine vein and escape Chu Fengmian's detection. The laws of heaven and earth were hidden in the divine vein. The moment the Heavenly Rock Emperor approached, they would erupt and directly attack him. Even a third tribulation or fourth tribulation true emperor would die if they were struck by the power of the laws of heaven and earth, let alone a mere incarnation. Damn it! Damn it! The Heavenly Rock Emperor's incarnation constantly roared. He had never suffered so much in the hands of a single person before. First, the sixth prince died at Chu Fengmian's hands. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian but failed. Instead, Chu Fengmian saw through his intentions and took away his empty ring. Next, he used the laws of heaven and earth to condense his incarnation and wanted to snatch the empty ring. However, Chu Fengmian schemed against him. Now, the laws of heaven and earth were about to be devoured by Chu Fengmian. This kind of enmity was simply irreconcilable. Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change as he listened to the Heavenly Rock Emperor's roar. He only used his mind to urge the laws of heaven and earth to suppress the Celestial Rock Emperor's clone. The 100-meter-long golden light suppressed the Sky Rock Emperor's clone and pushed it into the whirlpool of the sky-devouring secret technique. The Heavenly Rock Emperor's roar was continuously devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique. This Heavenly Rock Emperor's place of embodiment actually contains a total of 81 laws of the world. If he had consumed a little more, I might have almost died. Chu Fengmian's heaven-devouring secret technique had already devoured all the laws of heaven and earth in the Heavenly Rock Emperor's clone. There was a total of 81 laws of heaven and earth, forming the number 9. In order to kill Chu Fengmian, the Sky Rock Emperor had spent 81 nomological laws of heaven and earth to condense an incarnation. 81 strands of worldly laws was almost all of a four-tribulation true emperor's worldly laws. If he were to consume even more, it would affect his own power. The Heavenly Rock Emperor probably did not expect that even after condensing 81 laws of heaven and earth to form an incarnation, he still would not be a match for Chu Fengmian. But now, the benefits of the 81 laws of heaven and earth had nothing to do with the Heavenly Rock Emperor. They were all taken by Chu Fengmian. Refine them all. These 81 laws of heaven and earth contained the imprint of the Celestial Rock Emperor. As they fused into Chu Fengmian's body, they continuously erupted with spiritual power. It seemed to be looking for an opportunity to escape from Chu Fengmian's body, but how could Chu Fengmian let it escape? Heaven-devouring secret technique, suppress. Chu Fengmian roared and pushed the power of the heaven-devouring secret skill to the extreme in an instant. A heaven-devouring beast could devour the heavens and even the ancient monster continent in one breath. Chu Fengmian's heaven-devouring secret technique couldn't accomplish this. However, it could easily devour some minor laws of heaven and earth. As the technique continued to circulate, the Heavenly Rock Emperor's imprint within the 81 laws of heaven and earth was slowly being erased. In less than an hour, the Heavenly Rock Emperor's imprint had completely disappeared. It had been completely obliterated. The 81 laws of heaven and earth had truly become ownerless items. Rumble. The 81 laws of heaven and earth were sent into the divine vein by Chu Fengmian, and they all fell next to the 100-meter law. Like stars surrounding the moon, they revolved around the 100-meter law. At the same time, Chu Fengmian could clearly feel that his control over time had increased by a lot. Now, he had 81 laws of heaven and earth. In addition to his own law, he now had a total of 181 laws of heaven and earth. This number was close to the top among four-tribulation true emperors. Ordinary four-tribulation true emperors had around 100 laws of heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian could be considered one of the best among four-tribulation true emperors. However, Chu Fengmian's current cultivation was far from enough. His power was far from comparable to a four-tribulation true emperor. Only the laws of heaven and earth could contend against them. Chu Fengmian had a great chance of defeating a four-tribulation true emperor by using the laws of heaven and earth. However, no true emperor would actively use the laws of heaven and earth if they weren't confident. It was only a last resort. Only those with great confidence would choose to do so. For example, Celestial Peng's incarnation underestimated Chu Fengmian. Given Chu Fengmian's current cultivation, he couldn't use the laws of heaven and earth. Such an opportunity didn't come by often. Chu Fengmian's laws of heaven and earth were strong, but once he unleashed them, there was nothing he could do if his opponent chose to flee. My laws of heaven and earth are enough to stop the pressure from other sovereigns, but I still need to be strong enough to fight them. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The laws of heaven and earth were only a means and couldn't determine the outcome of a battle. Without enough power, one could still be killed regardless of how many laws of heaven and earth there were. What Chu Fengmian lacked right now was power. He wasn't strong enough to deal with a four-tribulation true emperor. Moreover, he couldn't reveal the secrets of his laws of heaven and earth. A law of heaven and earth was a shocking matter. Throughout the history of the ancient monster continent, there had never been such a character. If one's aptitude was 10 times better than others, they would be considered a genius. However, if one was 100 times better, they would be devilish. Chapter 1186. If that really happened, Chu Fengmian would no longer be in any danger. He would probably have to find an opportunity to leave the ancient monster continent. After all, being watched by the Heavenly Rock Emperor was no longer dangerous. Chu Fengmian had no choice but to expose the secret of the laws of heaven and earth to deal with the Heavenly Rock Emperor. The power of that incarnation actually surpassed Chu Fengmian's. Chu Fengmian was bound to lose, so he could only use the secret of the laws of heaven and earth to kill the incarnation. Chu Fengmian had no other choice. Fortunately, the Heavenly Rock Emperor wouldn't reveal this secret even if he knew. After all, the laws of heaven and earth were extremely tempting even for the Heavenly Rock Emperor. However, the Heavenly Rock Emperor was probably secretly preparing to deal with Chu Fengmian. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. Anyway, one more won't make a difference. Chu Fengmian had offended many people, so he wasn't afraid anymore. He would kill whoever came and run if he couldn't beat them. Chu Fengmian's philosophy was very clear. Right, I wonder what's hidden in the sixth prince's empty ring that made the Heavenly Rock Emperor so impulsive. Losing 81 strands of worldly laws was a considerable loss to the Sky Rock Emperor. He had burned them all in order to fight Chu Feng to the bitter end. It could be said that the Heavenly Rock Emperor would lose 81 laws of heaven and earth if he killed Chu Fengmian. The sixth prince's empty ring must have some kind of treasure if he was willing to pay such a great price for it. Chu Fengmian gathered his spiritual power and poured it into the empty ring. At a glance, the sixth prince's empty ring was filled with countless treasures and spiritual stones that piled up into a mountain. However, Chu Fengmian didn't care about these treasures. He carefully observed and discovered that there was an ancient jade box at the center of the countless treasures. The jade box's texture was clear, and the spiritual power it contained made Chu Fengmian somewhat apprehensive. The Heavenly River Jade? The legendary Heavenly River Jade that can only be born in the ancient Heavenly River? The Heavenly River Jade was known as a top-grade material for refining weapons. It was a top-grade material that an apprentice could refine a heavenly spirit weapon no matter how crude it was. If Chu Fengmian were to use the Celestial River Jade to refine a spiritual sword, it would probably surpass the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. Of course, he had only received the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword before the Origin World's baptism. Now that the Ancestral Dragon Paragon Sword had undergone the baptism of the laws of the world, it was no longer the same as before. It now had a chance of evolving into an extreme immortal artifact, surpassing the level of a Heaven Great Spirit artifact. However, it was said that the Heavenly River Jade was also one of the materials used to refine extreme Tao Immortal Armaments. In fact, the legendary extreme Tao Immortal Armament, the Jade Buddha Stupa, was mainly refined using the Heavenly River Jade. Carving the Milky Way Jade into a jade box, how extravagant. What exactly is inside? Even the most precious sacred medicine might not necessarily be more expensive than this Celestial River Jade. Using the Milky Way Jade as a box, the value of the items inside was self-evident. What a powerful medicinal effect. Chu Fengmian slowly extended his hand and opened a part of the jade box. A surge of medicinal power spread out. This was only a small crack, but the medicinal power that gushed out was no less than that of an ordinary sacred medicine. Chu Fengmian hurriedly gathered his spiritual power to gather the medicinal power and collect it together. This medicinal power alone could be added as a main ingredient when refining a saint-grade spirit pill. What kind of spirit medicine is in this box? How can it have such pure medicinal power? Chu Fengmian was a little shocked. The medicinal power that leaked out from just a small crack was comparable to that of a sacred medicine. Chu Fengmian had never encountered such pure medicinal power before. He felt even better about the spirit medicine in the Milky Way Jade box. Condense. Chu Fengmian pointed his finger and condensed the space around the Milky Way Jade box so that its medicinal power would not dissipate. Then, Chu Fengmian slowly opened the Milky Way Jade box. When he opened the Milky Way Jade box, a fist-sized fruit lay quietly within it. The fruit was a mysterious purple color. The pure medicinal power came from the purple fruit. What kind of spirit medicine is this? Chu Fengmian's eyes widened at the sight of the purple fruit. He could clearly feel that the medicinal power of this purple fruit was tens of times, or even hundreds of times stronger than that of sacred medicine. Even Chu Fengmian had never seen a spirit medicine with such pure medicinal power. No, this was no longer a spirit medicine. Even a sacred medicine couldn't describe this purple fruit. This purple fruit was more noble than all sacred medicines. It was like the emperor of medicine, the emperor of all medicines. Purple song divine fruit? This is good stuff. Even in the top 10 continents of the Milky Way, it's rare to see a divine item of the heavens. Where did you get it? While Chu Fengmian was puzzled, Xing Xian's voice suddenly rang out. When he saw the purple song divine fruit, he didn't bother to hide his praise. Based on Chu Fengmian's understanding of Xing Xian, he rarely praised anything. It could be seen that the purple song divine fruit was a precious treasure even to Xing Xian. Purple song divine fruit? A divine item of the heavens? You're saying that the purple song divine fruit is a divine item of the heavens? Chu Fengmian asked in surprise when he heard Xing Xian's words. He didn't know much about the purple song divine fruit, but he knew about divine items of the heavens. In the 9 domains, there was a saying that they were divine items of the heavens. In fact, many sacred medicines in the ancient monster continent could be considered divine items of the heavens in the 9 domains because they were rare. Divine items of the heavens were much rarer than divine items of the heavens. Moreover, they weren't rare in the 9 domains, but in the vast 1,000 domains. Even the lowest grade of divine item of the heavens was worth much more than 100 sacred medicines. That's right. This purple song divine fruit is said to be a divine fruit born in the void. According to your words, it's enough to be called a divine item of the heavens. I didn't expect such a treasure to exist in the small, ancient monster continent. Xing Xian said slowly. Where did you get it? From a 6th prince of the heavenly Peng Empire. Chu Fengmian recounted what had just happened. Chapter 1187. Xing Xian slowly explained after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. The purple song divine fruit can only be found in chaotic space-time. It can't be found in the ancient monster continent. It seems that Heavenly Peng Emperor must have found it in another continent. Heavenly Peng Emperor can go to other continents? Chu Fengmian asked doubtfully. Crossing the starry sky was not a distant dream for Chu Fengmian. Although he had read about it in ancient books, Chu Fengmian knew that many masters in ancient times had the ability to cross the starry sky. However, Chu Fengmian didn't know what realm was required to do so. Generally, 7 tribulation true emperors can comprehend the laws and forcibly cross the starry sky to go to other continents. However, this requires the help of a spirit artifact, an ark. Xing Xian began to explain. Now that Chu Fengmian's strength had reached the emperor realm, he was qualified to know many things. Of course, this ark isn't the same as the ones in the 9 territories. It's a real starry sky Arkansas. The 9 territories ark is just a shell. It's just a shell and can't cross the starry sky. A 7 tribulation true emperor can cross the starry sky with the help of an ark. A 9 tribulation true emperor can cross the starry sky with their physical body without an ark. Crossing the starry sky with their physical body. This was the rumor about masters in ancient times. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, even if he stepped into the starry sky, he would be ruthlessly annihilated unless he relied on the turbulence of space-time to drift. But if he did that, he didn't know where he would be taken. So, I can only return to the 9 territories after reaching the 7 tribulation true emperor realm? Chu Fengmian suddenly frowned. If he wanted to return to the 9 territories, he had to cross the starry sky. Although Chu Fengmian's strength had reached the emperor realm, he was still far from a 7 tribulation true emperor. Without a heaven-defying encounter, it would take a long time to reach the 7 tribulation true emperor realm. One had to know that for an emperor, breaking through once every 1,000 years was considered fast. Many emperors hadn't broken through once in 2 or 3,000 years. Even if Chu Fengmian was 10 times faster than other emperors, it would still take several hundred years. That was too long. There's no other way. Chu Fengmian had come to the ancient monster continent by accident. Now that he had recovered his strength, he was going to find Hanuel Li and Luo Shi before returning to the 9 zones. After all, Chu Fengmian still had a lot of unfinished business. He didn't have much time to spend on the ancient monster continent. There should be The space-time turbulence brought you here because there is an ancient teleportation formation between the 9 regions and the ancient monster continent. If you can find it, you can use it to go back. Xing Xian said after some thought. However, that teleportation formation has long since disappeared. Even if it still exists, I don't know where it is. If you can't find it, you'll have to reach the 7th Tribulation True Emperor level, then find an arc to return to the 9 realms. Looks like I need to find a teleportation formation. However, increasing my strength is more important. If I can't find one, I'll have to cultivate until I reach the 7 Tribulation True Emperor realm. Chu Feng thought to himself, but he was not discouraged. After all, Chu Fengmian didn't even know how to return to the 9 realms. Now, at least he had pointed out a clear path for Chu Fengmian. What's the use of this purple song divine fruit? The value of the purple K divine fruit was clear to Chu Fengmian now. However, if the purple K divine fruit was so precious, it had to be worth something. It's very simple. It can allow any quasi-emperor to become an emperor sovereign. Xing Xian calmly said. Of course, the benefits of the purple song divine fruit are not limited to that. It's just to let you understand its value. No major figure would be willing to let a quasi-emperor use such a divine item. Even his most beloved junior wouldn't be worth it. If it appears, 7, 8, and 9 Tribulation True Emperors would fight to the death for it. It's enough to raise their cultivation by at least 1 level. Xing Xian said. Even 7th and 8th Tribulation True Emperors would go all out just to get this fruit? Enough for a quasi-emperor to become an emperor sovereign? Chu Fengmian was dumbfounded after hearing Xing Xian's description. 7 or 8 Tribulation True Emperors could easily crush Chu Fengmian if they wanted to. They were definitely big shots capable of traversing the stars, close to the terrifying experts of the ancient era. When even these grand characters were fighting over it, Chu Fengmian had actually obtained it so easily. It was no wonder that Xing Xian had said that Chu Fengmian was lucky. The Heavenly Rock King must be flustered and exasperated right now. Such a treasure fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Why is the 6th prince holding on to such an item? Chu Fengmian clawed at the air, and a golden light fell into his palm. This was the 6th prince's memory. He carefully read the memory, and Chu Fengmian couldn't help but laugh. It's better to arrive at the right time than to be early. The Heavenly Rock King gave the 6th prince this purple song divine fruit to a big shot. No wonder the Heavenly Rock King was so furious after the 6th prince's death and wanted to kill me at all costs. Chu Fengmian understood the prince's intention. According to the prince's memory, the Heavenly Rock King wanted to give the fruit to a big shot. The Heavenly Rock King didn't have time to spare, so he handed it over to his favorite 6th prince to attend a banquet at the Myriad Dragon City. However, the 6th prince received the news of Lu Daojuan's death and rushed to the ancient Serpent Empire. In the end, he met Chu Fengmian and was killed. This was truly a coincidence. Chu Fengmian didn't expect that killing the 6th prince would give him such a huge benefit. Looks like good things come in pairs in the Sacred Dragon secret realm. A hint of joy flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. According to the 6th prince's memory, the big shot that the Heavenly Rock King wanted to give the fruit to was an expert from the Sacred Dragon secret realm. The banquet that the 6th prince wanted to attend was hosted by several disciples of the Sacred Dragon secret realm. Chu Fengmian spent a lot of effort to find information about the Sacred Dragon secret realm and finally found a living person. I'll refine the purple song divine fruit first. After that, I'll go to the Myriad Dragon City to attend the Sacred Dragon banquet. Chu Fengmian pondered for a moment and decided to refine the purple song divine fruit first to avoid any unexpected events. Chapter 1188. After witnessing Heavenly Rock Emperor's power, Chu Fengmian finally understood what it meant to say that there was always someone stronger. Heavenly Rock Emperor had almost killed Chu Fengmian with an attack that crossed millions of kilometers. Right now, Chu Fengmian had at most 181 world principles. Heavenly Rock Emperor could use 81 world principles to condense a single clone. This was the gap between Chu Fengmian and these monster emperors, not to mention Heavenly Rock Emperor. If Chu Feng Mian fought Sun Ba of the Sun family alone, he would lose without a doubt. The ancient monster continent was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There were many more masters than Chu Feng Mian had imagined. Not to mention, there was also the mysterious Holy Dragon Seal domain. One had to know that Heavenly Rock Emperor was already one of the 3 monster emperors of the ancient monster continent. Despite his noble status, Chu Feng still had to give the Purple Song Divine Fruit to some big shot in the Holy Dragon Seal domain. This big shot was someone that even Heavenly Rock Emperor had to curry favor with. This person's strength might be even more terrifying than Heavenly Rock Emperor. In front of so many masters, Chu Feng Mian's strength was nothing. He had to seize every opportunity to improve his strength. Let's refine this Purple Song Divine Fruit first. Chu Feng Mian didn't think too much about it. Although this Purple Song Divine Fruit was better used when Chu Feng Mian was on the verge of breaking through to the Emperor realm, Yang Kai didn't want to use it. But right now, Chu Feng Mian's top priority was to improve his strength. He couldn't care less. The refining method of the Purple Song Divine Fruit was extremely simple. According to Xing Xian, although the energy contained in the Purple Song Divine Fruit was not pure, it was not mild. It could be said that even an ordinary person could eat it directly. However, this refining method could only use 1% of the Purple Song Divine Fruit's medicinal energy at most. The remaining 99% would be wasted. Xing Xian gave Chu Feng Mian a jade talisman that recorded the method to refine the Purple Song Divine Fruit. This method was the result of countless years of research. It could refine the Purple Song Divine Fruit's energy to the greatest extent. According to this method, I can refine at least 70% of the Purple Song Divine Fruit's energy. But now that I have the bloodline of the Heaven-Devouring Beast and know the Heaven-Devouring secret technique, I might be able to take another step forward. Chu Fengmian quickly went through the refining method in his mind. He had already memorized it in his heart. The refinement method was not complicated. Very soon, Chu Fengmian mastered it. Then Chu Fengmian opened his mouth and swallowed the Purple Song Divine Fruit. The Purple Song Divine Fruit melted in Chu Fengmian's mouth. It transformed into the purest form of spiritual energy and began to circulate throughout his body. This medicinal power was much gentler than many of the spiritual medicines that Chu Fengmian had seen before. It did not cause any harm to his body at all. This Purple Song Divine Fruit is truly divine. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. The Purple Song Divine Fruit contained such enormous medicinal power. Its medicinal power was actually so mild. It was no wonder that it was called a divine object of the heavens. This kind of deity was already beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. However, Chu Fengmian didn't care about this very much. Instead, he quickly activated the refining method of the Jade Talisman. Chu Fengmian's body, his bloodline, and every drop of ancient war dragon blood essence were suddenly opened. They were continuously devouring the medicinal power of the Purple Song Divine Fruit. The medicinal power of the Purple Song Divine Fruit could be integrated into every cell and every drop of Chu Fengmian's blood essence. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also activated the power of the Heaven-Devouring Beast bloodline to the extreme. The reason why the Heaven-Devouring Beast could devour the heavens was to devour the heavens and turn them into its power. This was also the source of the Heaven-Devouring Beast's power. When it came to refining spiritual energy, if the Heaven-Devouring Beast claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Now, Chu Fengmian borrowed the power of the Heaven-Devouring Beast bloodline to continuously devour the power of the Purple Song Divine Fruit. Drops of ancient war dragon blood essence began to condense. Chu Fengmian's aura also began to rise as the ancient war dragon blood essence continued to condense. He was only a step away from the 9th step of the life and death steps, the immortal realm. There was no rush. Chu Fengmian had only refined less than 30% of the Purple Song Divine Fruit's power. Drops of ancient war dragon blood essence were still condensing. The amount of ancient war dragon blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body was already close to 125,000 drops. He was only 4,600 drops away from 129,600 drops. It seems that the peak of the immortal realm is the limit of 129,600 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence. The first step of the battle dragon secret art was about to reach the peak. However, Chu Fengmian was clear that there was still the second and third step after that. Even though Chu Fengmian's knowledge and experience had already surpassed what it used to be, the battle dragon secret art was still the most godly secret art he had ever seen. Chu Fengmian had once asked Xing Xian about the origin of the battle dragon secret art. However, Xing Xian's answer was vague. Even Chu Fengmian did not know if Xing Xian was deliberately hiding it or if he really did not remember it. Let's try to break through to the immortal realm. Once I step into the immortal realm, I can properly accumulate and prepare to break through to the Emperor realm. The immortal realm was the last step to break through to the Emperor realm. Now, Chu Fengmian was officially starting to break through to the immortal realm. Boom! An ancient gate suddenly condensed behind Chu Fengmian. This gate was simple and unadorned. However, the power it contained was simply shocking to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian knew that this was the bottleneck of the immortal realm. Usually, this bottleneck would only appear in the mind of a cultivator. However, the power of this bottleneck was simply too powerful. It was enough to materialize a physical body. Now, Chu Fengmian turned around and saw that it was right in front of him. Chu Fengmian could feel that this simple gate was the seal of his power. As long as he could break this ancient gate, his strength would take another step forward and step into the immortal realm. Battle Dragon Claw, tear it apart. Chu Fengmian glanced at it and suddenly snorted coldly. In an instant, the battle dragon claw condensed and bombarded the ancient gate fiercely. Boom! The moment the battle dragon claw bombarded the gate, only an echo was left. There was not even a trace left on the ancient gate. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, this battle dragon claw was enough to crush countless quasi-emperors. However, he was still unable to break through the bottleneck of the immortal realm. The more monstrous a genius was, the more difficult it was to break through the bottleneck. For Chu Fengmian, it would be even more difficult for him to break through. Chapter 1189. Soaring Serpent Transformation. Gigantic Sword Ray. Sword God. Chu Fengmian unleashed all of his power. In the blink of an eye, his power soared countless times. The surrounding void shattered continuously, turning into nothingness. In the heart of nothingness, Chu Fengmian wielded two spiritual swords and slashed at the ancient gate at the same time. Boom! Boom! Streaks of sword light struck the ancient door, shaking it time and time again. However, it seemed that no matter how Chu Fengmian shook it, the ancient gate still stood there motionlessly. Supreme Sword Energy. Seeing this scene, Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. His swordless sword chi immediately merged into the two spiritual swords. Then, the two spiritual swords merged into one. Dual Sword Destruction. In an instant, the power of the two spiritual swords was pushed to the extreme as they continued to slash at the ancient door. Boom! When the two sword lights collided with the ancient door, the surrounding space was completely shattered. This power was enough to easily kill a true emperor like Lu Daojun. However, as the spiritual energy dissipated, the ancient gate still stood there. On the surface, where the two sword lights had struck, there was only a crack left on the surface. These two sword rays, enough to kill a true emperor, only managed to leave a small crack on the door. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but frown. According to Chu Fengmian's estimation, the two streaks of sword light should be enough to leave a large crack on the ancient gate. After all, this was close to Chu Fengmian's full power. Even a three-tribulation true emperor would be injured after taking this blow head-on. They might even die on the spot. Chu Fengmian's bottleneck to the eternal realm was much more difficult than he had expected. Worldly laws, come out. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. A golden light that was 100 feet long appeared from his divine pulse. The 81 laws of the heavens and earth surrounded the golden light. Chu Fengmian held the 100-meter-long golden beam in his hand and immediately shot it at the ancient gate again. The attack this time mobilized the surrounding power of heaven and earth. All the power of heaven and earth was mobilized and bombarded the ancient door at the same time. This time, it was the attack of a real Emperor Realm Master. Moreover, it was a desperate attack from an emperor. The worldly laws were the last resort for true emperors. They wouldn't use them unless it was absolutely necessary. The power of the 300-meter-long golden beam struck the ancient gate. Finally, the sound of something shattering was heard from the ancient door. A crack suddenly appeared on the ancient door, penetrating it. Good, this is the chance. Chu Fengmian could feel that the seal on his body was undone with the destruction of the door. The stagnant refinement of the primordial war dragon's blood began to condense again. 126,000, 127,000, 128,000. When the ancient war dragon's blood essence was condensed to 128,000 drops, it finally stopped. Most parts of the primordial war dragon's shadow had condensed, except for the dragon horn on its head. The dragon horn was the most noble part of the primordial war dragon. It was also the most difficult part to condense the war dragon art. With the help of the purple song divine fruit, Chu Fengmian condensed 128,000 drops of primordial war dragon's blood and stepped into the immortal realm. After stepping into the immortal realm, Chu Fengmian could feel that his strength was close to perfection. It could be said that it was a common encounter. It was meaningless for Chu Fengmian. The immortal realm was equivalent to the small perfection realm. Only in this state could one break through to the Emperor realm. Under this state, it would be extremely difficult to advance further. It was like the bloodstone in the world of blood. It was meaningless for old Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm. However, Chu Fengmian's bloodline had been promoted to the limit by using the bloodstone. Now that he had broken through to the immortal realm, he had no regrets. The immortal realm is the ultimate embodiment of a cultivator's strength. The strength of the Emperor realm is more about controlling the power of heaven and earth and integrating it into one's body. It's not just about the condensation of strength. Chu Fengmian could feel that his body was close to perfection. He could perfectly control the trace of spirit energy. I finally stepped into the immortal realm. Next, it's time to go to the Sacred Dragon secret domain. Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes and looked at the empty space. In the fight between Chu Fengmian and Heavenly Rock Emperor, the ancient snake chamber of commerce's treasury had been completely destroyed. Now, it had turned into an endless void. All the treasures had been thrown into the depths of the void. Even Chu Fengmian couldn't find it. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had collected the supreme sword qi in advance. The 1,000 stalks of saint herbs were also taken away by Chu Fengmian. Although there was still a shocking amount of wealth in the treasury, with Chu Fengmian's current strength, it was too fast for him to condense spirit stones. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and communicated with his divine vein. In front of Chu Fengmian, spirit stones were condensing. These spirit stones were milky white. The spirit energy contained in them was purer than royal-grade spirit stones. Saint grade. The spirit stones that Chu Fengmian condensed were no longer royal-grade spirit stones, but saint-grade spirit stones. Saint-grade spirit stones had only appeared in ancient continents. In the 9 realms, there were also records of them in ancient books. Saint-grade spirit stones were enough to activate countless spirit arrays and spirit artifacts. Even an Emperor Realm Master needed them. Now that Chu Fengmian's divine vein had been baptized by the power of the world and reached the immortal realm, it was enough for him to condense saint-grade spirit stones. Although I don't need saint-grade spirit stones, many true emperors need them to activate their formations and spirit artifacts. I can condense more of them and trade with them later. Royal-grade spirit stones were dispensable to true emperors. Thus, even if Chu Fengmian had a lot of them, there were many things he couldn't buy. However, saint-grade spirit stones were different. Even true emperors needed them. Even Heavenly Rock Emperor needed them. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed a large amount of saint-grade spirit stones, it was enough for him to trade with an Emperor Realm Master. Chapter 1190. For Chu Fengmian, Condensing Saint-grade spirit stones didn't take much effort at all. He used his divine veins to constantly devour the power of the dragon veins, transforming the pure spiritual energy into Saint-grade spirit stones and piling them up in the empty ring. Chu Fengmian didn't pay attention to it and allowed it to condense. His figure moved, and with a step, he walked out of the void, outside the imperial capital in a mountain range. Jin Yuan, Qing Song, and Blood Demon Venerable were now standing on the mountain range. The three of them were talking to each other when suddenly the space in front of them was torn apart, causing them to show some nervousness in their eyes. However, the moment they saw the figure walking out, the three of them revealed expressions of disrespect. They felt the aura of Chu Feng's body, and their expressions changed slightly. Then they opened their mouths and said, "Brother Chu Feng, you're a genius. Congratulations, Master. Your strength has improved by another step." The three of them could already see that Chu Fengmian's realm had reached the 9th step of the life and death steps, the immortal realm. This speed was simply frightening. One should know that Chu Fengmian had just stepped into the paramount realm a few days ago in the world of blood. There was a bottleneck between each step of the life and death steps. If they were to cultivate, it would take them at least a few decades to break through one step. This speed wasn't slow. The three of them could step into the quasi-emperor realm and were first-rate geniuses on the life and death steps. Some ordinary warriors might need hundreds of years to break through one step. And now, it had only been a few days since Chu Fengmian had broken through to the celestial stage. The speed at which he broke through again was simply astonishing. Even the countless geniuses that the three of them had heard of couldn't be compared to Chu Fengmian. It's just good luck. Chu Fengmian heard the three of them and smiled casually. Chu Fengmian himself didn't expect that he would step into the immortal realm at such a fast speed. Killing the 6th prince of the Heavenly Peng Empire was already considered a surprise for Chu Fengmian. Obtaining the Purple Song Divine Fruit was even more unexpected. Using the power of the Purple Song Divine Fruit, Chu Fengmian simply skipped the accumulation of the Paramount Realm and directly stepped into the Immortal Realm. However, it was also good. After stepping into the Immortal Realm, Chu Fengmian's strength had taken a step forward, and he had more capital to protect himself. Chu Fengmian now had countless enemies. Without the ability to protect himself, he would not be able to establish himself in the ancient monsters continent. Master, we've heard some news about the Holy Dragon Mystery Realm from our inquiries over the past few days. The Blood Demon Reverend, Qing Song, and the others exchanged glances before they slowly opened their mouths and said, "On the 15th of next month, I heard that there will be a banquet in the Divine Dragon Empire's 10,000 Dragon City. The host of this banquet is a disciple of the Holy Dragon Secret Realm. All the geniuses will participate in this gathering. I heard that anyone who hasn't become a true emperor can take part in the examination. Those who pass will be able to enter the secret domain. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The Bai family, Mo family, and the 8 great royal families have already sent people over. Our Qing family has also sent some geniuses over." Pine Tree said respectfully. His narration was even more detailed than the 6th prince's memories. Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. How much do you know about the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked after hearing the story. We know very little about the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. After all, with our status, it's almost impossible for us to be related to the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. The Blood Demon Reverend said slowly. The Holy Dragon Mystery Plane is a sacred ground in the ancient monster continent. It's a sacred ground that transcends the ancient monster continent. It's said that the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane transcends the ancient monster continent. Its overall strength is above the ancient monster continent. Many elders in the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane are as strong as the ancient Serpent Emperor, Heavenly Rock Emperor, and the others. However, the people from the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane rarely appear in the ancient monster continent. Therefore, the sudden appearance of the people from the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane is unexpected. However, I'm afraid that all the forces in the 3 great empires will send people over for the chance to enter the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. Some of the elders were as strong as the Heavenly Rock Emperor and the others. Chu Fengmian's expression changed slightly after hearing the blood demon Reverend's words. He knew how strong the heavenly rock emperor was. Even if Chu Fengmian went all out, he was like an ant compared to the heavenly rock emperor. The Holy Dragon Mystery Plane was filled with experts. However, even if it was a tiger's den, Chu Fengmian had to go for the sake of Han Yue Li and Luo Shi. Chu Fengmian had to attend the banquet in the 10,000 Dragon City on the 15th of next month. This was his best chance to enter the Holy Dragon Mystery Plane. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait for a long time. Let's go to the 10,000 Dragon City. Chu Fengmian made a prompt decision. There were still 20 days until the 15th of next month. Chu Fengmian could go there earlier to inquire about the situation. Then, Chu Fengmian, Jin Yuan, Qing Song, and the others turned into a beam of light and flew in the direction of the 10,000 Dragon City. After using countless transportation formations, the four of them passed through countless cities and finally left the ancient Serpent Empire's territory. This was Chu Fengmian's first time leaving the ancient Serpent Empire and entering the Divine Dragon Empire. The fiends reigned supreme in the Divine Dragon Empire. Most of the fiend gods' bloodlines were related to the dragon race. However, most of the fiend gods' dragon race bloodlines were not pure. Some of the truly pure dragon race bloodlines were the Divine Dragon Empire's nobles. As for Chu Fengmian's war dragon bloodline, it was rather eye-catching. It could be said that even the Divine Dragon Empire's royal court's bloodline was not as pure as Chu Fengmian's war dragon bloodline. Hence, Chu Fengmian changed his appearance, disguising his bloodline as an ordinary golden dragon bloodline. Although there were not many golden dragon bloodlines in the Divine Dragon Empire, there were still some. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian's use of the sword matched the characteristics of the golden dragon bloodline. After 3 days, Chu Fengmian's group arrived at the heart of the Divine Dragon Empire. 10,000 Dragon City was the heart of the Divine Dragon Empire. It was also the capital of the Divine Dragon Empire, a place where true experts were as common as clouds. 10,000 dragons gathered here. Normally, 10,000 Dragon City was extremely lively. Now, due to the banquet, it became extraordinarily lively. Immediately, a hubbub of voices rang out. The experts of countless hidden factions all rushed over. Be it loose cultivators with some talent or the disciples of the various large factions, they all gathered in 10,000 Dragon City, intending to attend the banquet. Chapter 1191. Even the Blood Demon Supremacy and the others wanted to join the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, but they didn't have a chance. They all had their own plans for the 10,000 Dragon City banquet, but the Blood Demon Supremacy and the others were all famous figures in the ancient monster continent. They knew a lot about the ancient monster continent from Chu Fengmian. They weren't considered big shots in the quasi-emperor realm. Although the Blood Demon Supremacy was known as an invincible quasi-emperor, he was just a figurehead. The geniuses nurtured by the major forces were usually cultivating in seclusion and wouldn't show themselves. Those people were the real geniuses. Master Bai of the Bai family was already considered a monster, but he wasn't even in the top 3 of the Bai family. The young master of the Bai family was said to be 10 times more monstrous than Master Bai. He had once killed 3 quasi-emperors at the immortal realm. Such geniuses weren't limited to the Bai family, the Sun family, the 5 Mountain Sword Sect, and the heavenly Peng Empire. When Chu Fengmian and the others stepped into the 10,000 Dragon City, the surrounding people looked a little indifferent. If it was in the past, they would be shocked to see so many quasi-emperors appear together. However, due to the 10,000 Dragon City's banquet, many quasi-emperor experts had come. To them, this was nothing out of the ordinary. Chu Fengmian looked around and saw 5 or 6 figures walking out of the transportation formation beside him. These 5 or 6 figures were all quasi-emperors. Their auras weren't mysterious, and they didn't belong to the 3 empires. Those are the disciples of the crystal blessed land. I didn't expect them to come. The Blood Demon Supremacy looked surprised when he saw this group of people. He then explained to Chu Fengmian, the crystal blessed land doesn't belong to the 3 empires. It's a force in the West Sea Islands of the ancient monster continent. They're from a small world and are the overlords of the West Sea Islands. Although they're weaker than the three empires, the three empires don't dare to provoke them. The people of the Crystal Blessed Land have always appeared in the West Sea and rarely set foot on the continent. I didn't expect them to come. It seems like the Sacred Dragon's secret realm is more tempting than I thought. The Crystal Blessed Land was basically a local tyrant. They were far away and didn't interfere with the continent's affairs. Now that they were all here, it meant that many hidden forces of the ancient monster continent would show up as well. Although these hidden forces were not as strong as the three empires, their numbers were great. If their experts were to join forces, they would be a powerful force. The ancient monster continent is full of hidden talents. Hearing all this, Chu Fumian couldn't help but sigh. He had never thought that there would be so many strong cultivators. It was unimaginable even in the 9 regions. However, Chu Fumian didn't know much about the forces of the 9 territories. With his previous strength, it was impossible for him to reach the Emperor realm. Therefore, Chu Fumian didn't know how many experts there were in the 9 zones. This trip to the ancient monster continent had broadened his horizons. Master, what should we do? Our Qing clan's people should have already reached the 10,000 Dragon City. If you need a place to stay, I can find someone to arrange it. Pine Tree turned around and asked Chu Fumian. There's no need. With your current status, it's not good for you to show your face. Chu Fumian said calmly. Let's find a place to stay first. Saying so, Chu Fumian and the others left the transmission zone and stepped into the 10,000 Dragon City. Pine Tree, Jin Yuan, and Blood Demon Commander? How did the 3 of them get together? Not long after Chu Fumian and the others left, several cultivators next to them began to talk in surprise. Pine Tree, Jin Yuan, and the others were famous masters in the ancient monster continent, especially Blood Demon Commander, who was said to be close to an Emperor Realm Master. He was quite famous. Pine Tree and Jin Yuan were both masters of the 8 great imperial families, so it was normal for them to team up. However, it was extremely strange for a loner like Blood Demon Commander to team up with them. I don't know. Maybe they worked together to make a deal. The affairs of these big shots are not something we could discuss. A cultivator next to him sighed. We have seen countless big shots in the past few days. The experts of the ancient Serpent Empire and the Heavenly Rock Empire are all here. Even a few of the Heavenly Rock Empire's princes are here. So what? The experts of the 5 Mountain Sword Sect and the Sun Clan are here as well. There are also the experts of the Crystal Blessed Land. Our 10,000 Dragon City has not been so lively in a long time. The Divine Dragon Empire cultivators chatted with each other. Stop discussing. More people are here. From the teleportation formation, 7 or 8 figures once again walked out. The person in the lead was holding a rainbow, spiritual sword as he slowly walked out. A few other cultivators followed behind him, all of them holding spiritual swords. Immediately, sword lights flashed. They are the disciples of the 5 Mountain Sword Sect. Rainbow Sunglow Sword. That is the 5 Mountain Sword Sect's Rainbow Sunglow Sword. Could this person be the 5 Mountain Sword Sect's Little Sword Master, Yi Jinxiu? What a strong aura. This aura is simply on a different level from that of other quasi-emperors. Sure, be softer. The Little Sword Master's temper is not good. If he learns that we are talking about him, we will be finished. The few cultivators quickly lower their voices. Humph. Senior Brother Yi, these trash still dare to talk about you. Should I make a move to teach them a lesson? A 5 Mountain Sword Sect disciple from the 5 Mountain Sword Sect said with some murderous intent flashing in his eyes as he struck a killing pose. This 5 Mountain Sword Sect disciple already locked his gaze on the cultivators who were discussing earlier, ready to make a move at any moment. Never mind. This is the Divine Dragon Empire. Let's not mess around. This time, we are here to participate in the 10,000 Dragon Cities banquet. I heard that there will be a battle at this banquet. We will definitely rank first. Yi Jinxiu, who was known as the Little Sword Master, said coldly. When Yi Jinxiu mentioned the first rank, he did not sound confident. It was like he was determined to obtain the first rank. With Senior Brother Yi making a move, the other trash are just clay chickens and pottery dogs. Think about that old man high. He did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He even dared to try to teach senior brother Yi a lesson. However, senior brother Yi directly killed him with one sword strike, not even leaving a corpse behind. The five mountain sword sect disciple at the side quickly fawned over Yi Jinxiu. Old man Hai thought that he overcame the true emperor tribulation and became a true emperor. How dare he try to teach senior brother Yi a lesson? Although senior brother Yi has not advanced to true emperor, he is strong enough to kill true emperors. That's right. If the others dare to compete with senior brother Yi, they're just seeking death. Chapter 1192. Those five mountain sword sect disciples are too arrogant. It was only after this group of five mountain sword sect disciples left that the surrounding warriors slowly began to discuss. That young sword master is indeed terrifying. He's able to kill a true emperor as a quasi-emperor. Very few people in the entire ancient monster continent can do this. That's right. Even ancient serpent empires by clan, divine dragon empire, and heavenly Peng empire don't have that many people. However, I heard that the guests this time are from the sacred dragon's secret realm. They're only at the eternal realm, yet they can kill true emperors. Eternal realm cultivators killing true emperors? How is that possible? That's a difference of 2 levels. Even young sword master can't do that. The sacred dragon's secret realm might be mysterious, but it shouldn't be that monstrous. Just wait and see. This news came from the imperial family of Divine Dragon Empire. I heard that a true emperor of Divine Dragon Empire was killed on the spot because he didn't believe these people's identities. As more experts arrived, the discussions gradually died down. Young sword master, Yi Jinxiu. Chu Fengmian murmured. He could feel that Yi Jinxiu was much stronger than what he had shown. What he had shown was only a portion of Yi Jinxiu's strength. His sword intent had reached the level of sword god. Divine sword intent. Yi Jinxiu was still a bit lacking compared to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's sword god was close to grand completion, while Yi Jinxiu was only at the initial stage. However, according to the rumors, Yi Jinxiu could kill true emperors. His strength wasn't as simple as it seemed. Chu Fengmian had killed true emperors before, so he knew how powerful they were. 10 ordinary quasi-emperors might not be able to kill one true emperor. Yi Jinxiu must have his own unique means to be able to kill true emperors. Master, be careful. Yi Jinxiu's strength is very strange. I fought him when he just reached the eternal realm and was almost killed by him. Blood demon supremacy, said from the side. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. Clearly, he had quite a bit of enmity with Yi Jinxiu. Oh, Chu Fengmian exclaimed in surprise. He was now well aware of the blood demon venerable strength. He was much stronger than ordinary quasi-emperors. However, when Yi Jian was at the Undying Realm, he had already caused Blood Devil Lord to suffer a huge loss and almost killed him. Such strength was truly terrifying. That was indeed something that Chu Fengmian had to be wary of. However, what Chu Fengmian was more curious about was the rumored disciple of the Sacred Dragon Mystery Realm. Rumor had it that the disciples of the Sacred Dragon's secret ground were strong enough to kill true emperors at the Eternal Realm. Only Chu Fengmian could do this. A quasi-emperor could kill a true emperor. No matter how much Chu Fengmian urged his bloodline power, he could not form another formation. Chu Fengmian tried countless times, but to no avail. It seems that if I want to upgrade my bloodline power, it will be impossible to do so unless I get the blood essence of progenitor Tianlong. Chu Fengmian tried a dozen times in a row, but failed every time. He now had a rough idea that the only way to improve his bloodline was to get the blood essence of progenitor Tianlong. However, it was easier said than done to get the blood essence of progenitor Tianlong. Chu Fengmian now knew that the 9 regions Tianjin sect had a drop of blood essence of progenitor Tianlong. But now that Chu Fengmian was in the ancient monster continent, he had to find an opportunity to return to the ancient monster continent and go to the Tianjin sect to get the blood essence of progenitor Tianlong. It's been so long. Why haven't the blood demon sovereign and the others returned? Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes. It had been 4 to 5 hours. The blood demon sovereign and the others still had not returned. It should not take so much time to find an invitation. At this time, Chu Fengmian's expression suddenly changed. Chapter 1193. In Chu Fengmian's mind, he suddenly felt that the drop of blood essence he left on blood demon supremacy had shattered. Chu Fengmian had purposely left the blood essence on blood demon supremacy. Firstly, it was to supervise blood demon supremacy. Secondly, it was a protective talisman. When blood demon supremacy was in danger, he could use the power of the blood essence to escape. But now, the blood essence had suddenly shattered. Blood demon supremacy was in danger. "I'd like to see who dares to touch my people." Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Although blood demon supremacy and the others were subdued by Chu Fengmian, they were still loyal to him. But now they were being hunted down. It was simply courting death. He waved his hand in the air, and a water mirror condensed in front of Chu Fengmian. In the water mirror, blood demon supremacy, Qing Song, and Jin Yuan were being chased by 5 martial artists. The 5 martial artists were holding spiritual swords in their hands as they chased after the blood demon Reverend and the others. Every move they made was ferocious as they wanted to kill them. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. His figure flashed and suddenly flew out of the courtyard. In a mountain range outside Myriad Dragon City, blood demon Reverend, Qing Song, and Jin Yuan were running away. They had suffered quite a lot of injuries, and there were quite a lot of bloodstains on their bodies. In particular, blood demon supremacy's chest was pierced by a sword mark. Just now, if it wasn't for the drop of blood essence Chu Fengmian left on his body, he would have died on the spot. Damn it, we actually encountered the people of 5 Mountain Sword Sect. We've been tricked. They dare to launch a sneak attack in Myriad Dragon City. Have you informed Master? Master is in seclusion. I don't know when he will wake up. Blood demon supremacy, Qing Song, and Jin Yuan were talking with each other. Their eyes were filled with anger. When they were in Myriad Dragon City, they went to look for invitations. In the end, they encountered the people of 5 Mountain Sword Sect who launched a sneak attack and caught them off guard. The 5 disciples of 5 Mountain Sword Sect who were chasing them were all quasi-emperors. Their strength was on par with them. Now that they were ambushed, they fell into a disadvantageous position and were chased all the way. Blood demon supremacy. Don't even think about escaping today. Everyone knows that you have a demonic blood technique. After killing you, we can use your body to sacrifice for our swords. A disciple of the 5 Mountain Sword Sect chased after him and laughed loudly. Senior, you didn't kill you before. Unfortunately, you've fallen into our hands today. Damn it. Hearing the words of the 5 Mountain Sword Sect disciples, the blood demon supremacy was furious. But now, he was heavily injured, and it was simply impossible for him to be a match for these 5 Mountain Sword Sect disciples. Supremacy was the demon supremacy of 5 heaven supremacies was gradually they overtook him. Soon, the 5 Mountain Sword Sect disciples' light surpassed the blood demon sovereign and the other 2, trapping them in the center. Blood demon lord, let's see where you can run to now. Jin Yuan, Qing Song, are you 2 really going to follow blood demon supremacy? Even if you're from the 8 great royal families, other than the Bai family, the Mo family, and the 8 great royal families, everyone else is just a bunch of trash. If we kill you, then so be it. Hurry up and scram. We'll only kill blood devil supremacy, and we can let the 2 of you go. A disciple of 5 Mountains Sword Sect stared at Jin Yuan and Qing Song. Blood demon supremacy was alone. It didn't matter if they killed him. After all, Jin Yuan and Qing Song were from the 8 great sovereign families. Killing the 2 of them would cause some trouble. That was why he tried to persuade them. If it were in the past, Jin Yuan and Qing Song would definitely not fight with blood demon supremacy. But now, they were working for the same master. Naturally, they couldn't back down. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Come. Qing Song snorted coldly. Spiritual energy erupted from his body. He was a quasi-emperor, after all. There was no reason for him to back down. Jin Yuan and blood demon supremacy also unleashed their spiritual energy. They planned to fight with all their might. You don't know how to appreciate kindness. You don't want face when it's given to you. The disciple of Five Mountain Sword Sect who spoke earlier said disdainfully, "Forget it. Let's kill them all. It's better to use their blood as a sacrifice to the sword. After all, the Jin family and Qing family won't dare to go against our Five Mountain Sword Sect. That's right. Let's kill them. Let's see who else dares to stand up for them." Killing intent surged in the eyes of the Five Mountains Sword Sect disciples. Suddenly, 5 sword rays soared into the sky. They turned into a 5-colored sword ray and swept across. The power contained in the 5-colored sword ray was extremely violent. The faces of Blood Demon Supremacy and the others were extremely pale. They could naturally see how terrifying the 5-colored sword ray was. But now, Blood Demon Supremacy and the others were seriously injured. There was no way they could fight back. Just as the 5-colored sword light was about to strike down, a claw suddenly appeared in the air and swatted down in an overwhelming manner. This claw covered the sky and split open the sun, shattering the 5-colored sword light with a single claw. At the same time, another surge of spiritual energy grabbed at Blood Demon Supremacy and the others. Master, Blood Demon Supremacy and the others finally showed some joy on their faces. It was as if they had found a life-saving straw. As for the 5 disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect, their complexions changed as they roared furiously. "Who is it? How dare you go against our Five Mountains Sword Sect?" The moment the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples spoke, they activated their sword lights and attacked the Blood Demon Supremacy once again. They could naturally see that this surge of power was to save the 3 Blood Demon Supremacies. Now that they had finally launched a sneak attack on Blood Demon Supremacy and forced him into such a desperate situation, they naturally didn't want to miss this opportunity. The 5-colored sword ray blasted over again. Break! The moment the 5-colored sword ray blasted over again, a cold voice suddenly resounded in the sky. Then, a dragon roar condensed and turned into an ancient war dragon. It directly smashed the 5-colored sword ray into pieces. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly appeared and directly took Blood Demon Supremacy and the others to his side. Chu Fengmian opened the empty ring and took out a few saint-grade spiritual elixirs. He handed them to Blood Demon Supremacy and the others. The 3 of them swallowed the saint-grade spiritual elixirs, and their injuries recovered a lot. Their auras began to stabilize. Dragon Clan Expert. The Five Mountain Sword Sect disciple's face changed when he saw the dragon aura on Chu Fengmian's body. He then said coldly, "I don't know who you are. Blood Demon Supremacy is someone our Five Mountain Sword Sect must kill. You are really stupid to provoke our Five Mountain Sword Sect for Blood Demon Supremacy. If you retreat today, we can pretend that nothing happened." The Five Mountain Sword Sect disciple looked at Chu Fengmian and said, Chapter 1194. In the vicinity of Myriad Dragon City, Chu Fengmian's Dragon Clan aura made the disciples of Five Mountain Sword Sect regard him as a member of the Dragon Clan. The leading disciple of Five Mountains Sword Sect looked at Chu Fengmian and wanted to say something. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. "Get lost! Damn it!" The leading disciple of Five Mountains Sword Sect looked extremely gloomy. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to not give him any face. "You're just a little guy in the immortal realm. I gave you some face, but you really think you're a big shot? If you don't get lost, you'll die with these people today. Who's going to kill him?" As soon as the leading disciple of Five Mountains Sword Sect spoke, an eagle-faced man beside him walked out. "Leave it to me. I'll kill this kid happily." The eagle-faced man looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly took a step forward. His speed was extremely fast as he rushed towards Chu Fengmian. "Kid, go to hell. How dare you ruin our Five Mountain Sword Sect's business? It seems like you're really tired of living. Zhao Bu, don't kill him. Capture him first and break his arms." The leading disciple of Five Mountain Sword Sect's eyes flickered as he suddenly spoke. "Okay, senior brother, don't worry. I know what I'm doing." Before the hawk-nosed man called Zhao Bu finished speaking, he suddenly grabbed at Chu Fengyan with his palm. This palm was condensed and shrouded Chu Fengyan in an overwhelming manner. He wanted to suppress Chu Fengyan's body in his palm. Humph! Chu Fengyan saw the palm coming towards him. He stood where he was without any intention of dodging. Instead, he condensed his spiritual energy into his palm. Suddenly, it turned into a sharp claw and tore through the air. Fighting with force? Are you courting death? Xiaobo looked at Chu Fengyan's action and laughed. A little guy in the immortal realm dares to stand out. You're courting death. Suppress him. Xiaobo's eyes were filled with disdain. He was a quasi-emperor himself, a quasi-emperor of the Five Mountain Sword sect. Even among quasi-emperors, he was considered one of the best. What was Chu Fengyan? He was just a little guy in the immortal realm. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. In his opinion, defeating Chu Fengyan was a piece of cake. A frog in a well. Hearing Xiaobo's laughter, Chu Fengyan only shook his head and muttered to himself. In the next moment, his sharp claw descended from the sky. Crack! The sky enveloped by Xiaobo's palm was suddenly torn apart by this sharp claw. At the same time, a huge amount of spiritual energy bombarded Xiaobo's chest. What? Xiaobo's expression abruptly changed. It was as if he had never expected that his palm would be torn apart. He hastily retreated, but before he could gather his spiritual energy again, the sharp claw had already reached Xiaobo's chest. Boom! A burst of blood splattered everywhere. Xiaobo's chest was suddenly torn apart, and his heart was directly crushed. A vortex engulfed Xiaobo's body, engulfing all of his essence blood and devouring it mercilessly. What's going on? At this moment, the other disciples of the Five Mountains Sword sect suddenly came to their senses. By the time they realized what had happened, Xiaobo's blood essence had been mercilessly devoured. This also meant that Xiaobo had completely fallen, and there was no possibility of resurrection. A quasi-emperor had fallen just like that. Moreover, he was killed with a single move. None of the other disciples of the Five Mountain Sword sect took Chu Fengyan seriously. An immortal realm expert was just like an ant to them. However, it was precisely because of this that Xiaobo was killed by Chu Fengyan with a single move. This was completely beyond their imagination. As a result, they had no way to save Xiaobo. Damn it! This man killed Xiaobo. How dare he kill our disciples of the Five Mountain Sword sect? We will not rest until he is dead. We must kill him. The other disciples of the Five Mountains Sword sect flew into a rage after recovering from their shock. Xiaobo was killed by Chu Fengyan in front of their eyes. If they did not kill Chu Fengyan, how could they show their faces in the future? Boy, you are insidious enough to hide your strength. However, you will definitely die. No one can kill our disciples of the Five Mountain Sword sect and still escape unscathed. Another disciple of the Five Mountain Sword sect suddenly took a step forward. He held a spiritual sword in his hand, and on the spiritual sword, a five-colored sword light suddenly condensed and burst out. Die! The moment the five-colored sword light condensed, spiritual energy erupted, and the mighty sword light bombarded Chu Fengyan. This enormous five-colored sword light was simply going to devour Chu Fengyan's body. However, in the midst of this five-colored sword light, Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a somewhat disdainful smile. You talk big, but unfortunately, you're also a piece of trash. Die! Chu Fengyan slowly raised his hand and suddenly pointed out a finger. The moment he pointed his finger, the five-colored sword light was completely torn apart. It was as if an ocean had been cleaved apart by a sword. The Five Mountain Sword sect disciple's face changed in shock, as if he had seen something unbelievable. He reacted in an instant and once again struck out countless sword techniques. However, these countless sword techniques were mercilessly shattered in front of Chu Fengyan's finger. In the next moment, this finger penetrated the chest of the Five Mountain Sword sect disciple. The same vortex appeared and once again devoured the essence and blood of the Five Mountains Sword sect disciple. Another Five Mountain Sword sect disciple died on the spot. The other disciples of the Five Mountain Sword sect were already extremely shocked and in disbelief. If Xiaobo had killed Chu Fengyan, It could be said that Zhao Bu had underestimated his opponent. However, the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciple just now had unleashed his full strength. He had activated all the sword techniques of the Five Mountain Sword Sect, but under this full strength, he was still killed by Chu Fengyan's finger. Chu Fengyan stood on the spot and gently pointed out a finger, which was enough to kill a quasi-emperor. Killing a quasi-emperor with a flick of the finger. This kind of strength was simply something that only a legendary figure could achieve. However, Chu Fengyan was only in the immortal realm. They could not see any trace of concealment on Chu Fengyan's body, because Chu Fengyan's realm was indeed in the immortal realm. For a moment, the disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect who were clamoring to kill Chu Fengyan fell silent at the same time. Are the disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect a bunch of trash? Chu Fengyan looked at the disciples of the Five Mountains Sword Sect and sneered. A bunch of trash like you still dare to chase after my people. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you will not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Chapter 1195. I don't care who you are, but you can't insult our Five Mountain Sword Sect. The leader of the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples was furious when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. The Five Mountain Sword Sect was one of the three major human forces and had a prominent position in the ancient monster continent. The disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect were proud of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. They were furious when they heard Chu Fengyan's words. Damn it! The disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect were furious when they heard Chu Fengyan's words. They were all quasi-emperors and were considered to be reputable figures in the ancient monster continent. They had never been called trash before. Senior brother, this kid is too arrogant. Since he wants to die, we'll fulfill his wish. The other disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect stared at the leader with murderous eyes. Set up the formation. The leader of the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples suddenly said with a cold face. When the other Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples heard his words, they understood what he meant. Suddenly, they spread out, and rays of sword light soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, an incomparably huge sword array was formed. It flew up into the sky and enveloped the heavens. This sword formation was formed with Chu Fengyan at the center. In an instant, the sky was filled with sword light. The leader of the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples looked at Chu Fengyan with confidence and said, "Although you are strong, you are alone. If we attack together today, you will definitely lose. Please think about it and hand over the Blood Demon Sovereign. We can still end this peacefully. Attack together? So what if I let all of you trash attack together?" Chu Fengyan suddenly laughed when he heard the words of the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples. Trash. Do you think you could defeat the true dragon by joining forces? You're courting death. Damn it. Hearing this, the leader of the Five Mountain Sword Sect disciples couldn't hold back anymore. Suddenly, with a thought, he fused together with the sword formation. Sword light that filled the sky appeared. Thousand Sword Demon Slayer. With the cooperation of several quasi-emperors, this sword formation was enough to contend against a true emperor. The sky was filled with sword light, and all of them were aimed at Chu Fengyan. Beside Chu Fengyan, several quasi-emperors had fallen all of a sudden. This was a loss that the Five Mountain Sword Sect had never suffered in hundreds of years. Tung Jian, didn't you go after Blood Demon supremacy? Could it be that Blood Demon Lord killed him? A Five Mountain Sword Sect disciple frowned as he spoke. But Blood Demon Exalted shouldn't be able to do that. Has Blood Devil Sovereign become a true emperor already? Only then could he have killed Tung Jian. Another disciple of the Five Mountain Sword Sect suddenly guessed. Tung Jian's group consisted of 5 quasi-emperors. Unless Blood Devil Sovereign had reached the true emperor level, he wouldn't be able to take on 5 of them alone. Even with the help of Jinyuan and Pine Tree, it was still impossible. Impossible. Blood Devil Sovereign is known as an invincible quasi-emperor, but there's still a huge gap between him and a true emperor. Failure is the only outcome for him. Another Five Mountains Sword Sect disciple spoke. Compared to others, they understood the gap between quasi-emperors and true emperors better. Blood Devil Sovereign was already very close to becoming a true emperor in the eyes of the world. In fact, Blood Devil Sovereign was still very far away from becoming a true emperor. He wouldn't be able to break through in a short period of time. Chapter 1196. Someone else did it. Take a look. Just as they were arguing, Yi Jinxiu suddenly spoke. The moment Yi Jinxiu spoke, he suddenly condensed his spiritual energy and turned it into a water mirror in front of him. What appeared in the water mirror was the scene of Chu Fengyan killing Teng Jian and the others. The battle dragon claw was formed and swept across, killing all of Teng Jian and the others. The Dragon Clan? The Dragon Clan did it? Seeing the result, the other disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect were shocked. They never thought that it was the Dragon Clan who did it. After all, the Five Mountain Sword Sect and the Dragon Clan had no enmity in the past. No matter who did it, he must die for daring to kill the disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Yi Jinxiu's eyes were cold as he said, "Return to the Myriad Dragon City and investigate." Yes. The other disciples of the Five Mountains Sword Sect nodded respectfully when they heard Yi Jinxiu's words. Then, one after another, they left the mountain range. On the other side, Chu Fengyan and the others had already returned to the courtyard. Chu Fengyan sat on a stone bench with a water mirror in front of him. He was observing every movement of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Yi Jinxiu should have supreme sword chi on him. Chu Fengyan carefully observed Yi Jinxiu. There was an extremely familiar aura on Yi Jinxiu's body. This aura was the aura of supreme sword chi. The supreme sword chi on Yi Jinxiu should not be as much as on Chu Fengyan. However, the number should be about the same. There should be at least 800 of them. Otherwise, based on what he had sensed just now, the supreme sword chi on Yi Jinxiu's body should have already flown towards Chu Fengyan. There was a mutual attraction between the supreme sword chi. For example, Chu Fengyan had 1,000 supreme sword chi. If he encountered a supreme sword chi that was alone on the road, Chu Fengyan did not need to do anything. The supreme sword chi would choose to submit to Chu Fengyan. The supreme sword chi on Yi Jinxiu's body was faintly enough to contend against Chu Fengyan. This meant that the supreme sword chi on Yi Jinxiu's body was definitely not small. Right now, I have a total of 1,000 supreme sword chi. If I can obtain the supreme sword chi from Sword Cultivator Yi, I will have a total of 1,800 supreme sword chi. At that time, no one will be able to possess more supreme sword chi than me. All the supreme sword chi will belong to me. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. There were a total of 3,000 supreme sword chi. Right now, Chu Fengyan had 1,000 strands of supreme sword chi. If he obtained the supreme sword chi from Sword Cultivator Yi, he would have 1,800 strands of supreme sword chi, which was more than half of the total. Even if the remaining 1,200 strands of sword chi were obtained by one person, they would not pose any threat to Chu Fengyan. Moreover, the 3,000 strands of supreme sword chi were actually a whole. Every additional strand would bring great benefits to Chu Fengyan. If he obtained 800 strands of supreme sword chi, Chu Fengyan's strength would increase tremendously. The moment Chu Fengyan sensed the supreme sword chi on Yi Jinxiu's body, Yi Jinxiu, who had just returned to Myriad Dragon City, suddenly raised his head. His eyes were cold. He suddenly raised his head and looked in Chu Fengyan's direction. He could not help but stop. Supreme sword chi. There is actually someone in Myriad Dragon City who possesses supreme sword chi. Moreover, there are at least 1,000 strands of supreme sword chi. Yi Jinxiu muttered to himself. At the same time, his eyes were filled with killing intent. He had to obtain the supreme sword chi. If he obtained 1,000 strands of supreme sword chi, his strength would increase further. It was even possible for him to collect all 3,000 strands of supreme sword chi in the future. Senior Brother Yi? The other Five Mountains Sword Sect disciples asked in surprise when they saw Yi Jinxiu stop walking. Nothing. Let's go. Yi Jinxiu withdrew the killing intent in his eyes and continued walking. There were many experts in Myriad Dragon City. It would be a foolish choice to kill now. However, Since they were experts who came to Myriad Dragon City, most of them were here for the banquet. Sooner or later, they would meet each other. At that time, it would be a bloody battle. A few days passed quickly. Chu Fumian was in the courtyard, consolidating his realm. Previously, Chu Fumian had made several breakthroughs. Now was the time for Chu Fumian to consolidate his realm and train his sword skills. July 15th. Soon, the day arrived. On the day of the banquet in Myriad Dragon City. In the morning, Myriad Dragon City was bustling with activity. Almost all the experts who came were planning to attend the banquet. The Sacred Dragon's secret realm was extremely mysterious to everyone. It was a place that only existed in legends. To be able to see the Sacred Dragon's secret realm with their own eyes was a great opportunity for them. It was enough to broaden their horizons. Moreover, it was rumored that this banquet might give them a chance to enter the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. Who did not want to enter the Sacred Dragon's secret realm? Only people on the level of the Ancient Serpent Emperor or the Divine Dragon Emperor would not want to enter. To most cultivators, entering the Sacred Dragon's secret realm was something they could only dream of. As for Chu Fengyan, he did not care about entering the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. However, for the sake of Hanyu Li and Luo Shi, Chu Fengyan had to fly to the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. Early in the morning, the cultivators and fiend gods who received invitations gathered in the center of Myriad Dragon City. There was an incredibly huge palace that could hold hundreds of thousands of people. Two quasi-emperor experts of the Divine Dragon Empire stood guard at the entrance of this palace. Only those with invitations could enter. As for those without invitations, they could only wait outside the palace, searching for an opportunity. There are really many people here. Are all the geniuses of the ancient fiend continent gathered here? Chu Fengyan's group walked through the crowd. Chu Fengyan felt that the people he saw were all people with extremely high talent. At the very least, they were people on the life and death steps. There were many sovereigns above the heavenly fate realm. Chu Fengyan even saw quasi-emperors. This place was simply filled with geniuses. That is natural. After all, this is the Sacred Dragon's secret realm. Even the most demonic geniuses would want to enter. Those who are confident in their strength will all come. The Blood Demon Venerate said with a smile at the side. If the Blood Demon Venerate had a chance to enter the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, he would do so at all costs. After all, according to the rumors, once one entered the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, advancing to the Martial Emperor realm would be a sure thing. In the future, one would be able to dominate an area. Chapter 1197. No matter how poor a disciple's aptitude was, he or she would still be able to step into the Emperor realm. This alone was enough to attract countless geniuses to join the Sacred Dragon's secret dimension. The Emperor realm and True Emperor realm were peak existences in the ancient monster continent. Countless people could only dream of reaching this realm. By joining the Sacred Dragon's secret realm, one would at least be able to reach this level. It was no wonder that countless experts would go crazy over it. Although that's true, the difficulty of entering the Sacred Dragon Seal domain is likely no less than stepping into the Emperor realm. Chu Fengyan shook his head. According to his understanding, only a few geniuses from the ancient monster continent had managed to join the Sacred Dragon mystical ground. At least, not a single genius had managed to join the Sacred Dragon mystical ground in the past 100 years. True emperors might emerge within this century. It could be said that entering the secret realm was even harder than becoming a true emperor. Just becoming a true emperor wouldn't attract so many quasi-emperors. Even I have a chance of becoming one after 10,000 years of hard work. The Blood Demon Lord said with a smile. Everyone is aiming for a higher level. I heard that there are characters above 9 tribulation true emperors in the mysterious domain. Above 9 tribulation true emperor is the celestial being. Is there a celestial being in the Sacred Dragon secret realm? Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered. 9 tribulation true emperor was the limit for mortals. Any higher, and one wouldn't be able to become a human, only an immortal or a celestial being. Celestials were only a legend in many continents. However, in ancient times, there were still some experts who could reach this level. Chu Fengyan had once entered the House of Storms. The master of the House of Storms, venerable immortal Kanglin, was a celestial being. Only a celestial being could become a venerable immortal. For example, Chu Fengmian's master, the Sword Dao Lord, had surpassed 9 tribulations and became a celestial being. However, in this era, martial arts had declined. Chu Fengmian had never heard of the existence of celestial beings. Chu Fengmian's curiosity was piqued by the existence of a heavenly human in the sacred dragon mystery dimension. It's just a rumor. Whether it really exists or not is not something that we can come into contact with. The blood demon Supremacy shook his head. This was just a rumor. Even if it was said to be miraculous, it was still unknown whether it was true or not. The celestial being was, after all, a distant legend. No matter what, I must go to the sacred dragon mystery dimension. I'll decide what to do after I take a look, Chu Fengmian said slowly. The group of people quickly arrived in front of the palace. They handed over their invitations and quickly entered the palace. That person is Blood Demon Supremacy. Seeing Chu Fengmian's group leave, one of the Divine Dragon Empire quasi-emperors, standing guard, asked with some surprise. On the other hand, the other person beside him appeared much calmer. What's wrong? With Blood Demon Lord status, he should be qualified to participate. No, it's not his qualifications. It's his invitation. That Divine Dragon Empire quasi-emperor asked with a somewhat strange expression. His invitation is for the 5 Mountains Sword Sect. An invitation from the 5 Mountains Sword Sect. When the other person heard this, his expression changed slightly. It said that Tung Jian and a few other disciples of the 5 Mountains Sword Sect died in the mountains outside the city of 10,000 dragons. Could it be that they were killed by the Blood Demon Supremacy? The Blood Demon Supremacy dares to kill the people of the 5 Mountain Sword Sect. Why would he not dare? The 5 Mountain Sword Sects, Yi Jianxiu has always wanted to cultivate a killing sword. He needs a quasi-emperor with abundant vital qi. The Blood Demon Supremacy is forged from vital qi. Yi Jianxiu has been chasing after him, but did not have a chance to kill him. They are sworn enemies, this expert said slowly, clearly knowing some inside information. I heard that there will be a decisive battle at the banquet. It will be interesting then. Yi Jianxiu might not let the Blood Demon Supremacy off. However, this is not the time for Yi Jianxiu to be arrogant. Many of the experts participating in the banquet are no weaker than him. For example, the Bai clan's young clan head, the Mo clan's young clan head, the Heavenly Rock Empire's 2nd prince, the Divine Dragon Empire's 11th prince, and the Sun Clan Sun Sikong are all absolute geniuses no weaker than Yi Jianxiu. Let's wait and see. This banquet will be a fierce battle between tigers and dragons. After a while, these conversations gradually faded. More and more experts enter the palace. So many experts. As soon as the Blood Demon Supremacy entered, his expression changed drastically. He had already noticed that many of the famous experts of the previous generation of the ancient monster continent had arrived. It seemed like the attraction of this banquet was so great that it was enough to make these experts, who had been fighting for an era, appear. Blood Demon Supremacy, you actually dare to come here. The Little Sword Master has long wanted to obtain your bloody aura. I thought you would obediently hide in your tortoise shell to preserve your life. I did not expect you to come here to court death. The moment Chu Fengmian's group walked in, the gazes of many experts also turned towards them. An eagle-nosed old man couldn't help but sneer when he saw Blood Demon Reverend. Who is this old man? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked when he saw the eagle-nosed old man. This old man's appearance was not in Chu Fengmian's memory. It seemed like he was a quasi-emperor expert of the previous generation. His aura was even stronger than the Blood Demon Supremacy. It was impossible to achieve such a strong aura without tens of thousands of years of accumulation. Master, this man is the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. He's a famous expert and is a good friend of the Night Sword Cultivator. He once helped the Night Sword Cultivator to hunt me down. The Blood Demon Supremacy replied after hearing Chu Fengmian's question. Oh, Master? I did not expect you to become a dog and rely on someone else. However, your foresight is not very good. He's just an Immortal Realm kid. Blood Demon Supremacy, are you blind? How could you submit to an immortal realm, kid? Why don't you submit to me? I can even talk to the little sword master to spare your life." The Black Tiger Mountain Lord laughed and sneered when he heard the Blood Demon Supremacy's words. Black Tiger Mountain Lord? I've never heard of him. However, I don't think he's worthy of the name Black Tiger. If you're so willing to flatter me, why don't you change your name to Black Dog Mountain Lord? You're just an old dog anyway. Chu Fengmian looked at the Black Tiger Mountain Lord and said indifferently. The Black Tiger Mountain Lord provoked Chu Fengmian the moment he arrived. Obviously, he was not a friend, but an enemy. Chu Fengmian had nothing to say to his enemies. He would crush them to death. Chu Fengmian looked at the Black Tiger Mountain Lord and said, "I don't think you need to follow the little sword master. Kneel down and become my dog. I'll spare your life. How about it?" Chapter 1198. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and faced the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. The surrounding crowd was stunned when they heard Chu Fengmian's words. They could not react in time and felt that Chu Fengmian was simply a madman. Oh, interesting. That little guy actually dares to scold the Black Tiger Mountain Lord? Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. It seems that this little guy is still a newcomer and does not know the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's reputation. This kid is simply a madman. How dare he provoke the Black Tiger Mountain Lord? The Black Tiger Mountain Lord is the person closest to the Emperor candidate leaderboard. This kid is so arrogant. Perhaps he has something to rely on. Rely on? Do you think this person is a match for the Black Tiger Mountain Lord? Unless he is a disciple of the Sacred Dragon's secret domain, I have never heard of anyone in the immortal realm who can contend against the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. Even the little sword master Yi Jinxiu could not do it when he was in the immortal realm. Countless gazes fell on Chu Fengmian, and there was a hint of ridicule in their eyes. It was fine to stand out, but if one did not have the strength to do so, it was akin to courting death. At least in the eyes of others, Chu Fengmian's current actions were akin to courting death. "Kid, it seems that you are tired of living. Blood Demon Sovereign, I think you are indeed regressing with age to follow such a madman. Today, I will teach you a lesson, you ignorant kid." The Black Tiger Mountain Lord was enraged. What was his status? In the Quasi-Emperor capital, he was a person close to the Emperor candidate. His status was much higher than that of ordinary Quasi-Emperors. How could he tolerate Chu Fengmian's words? In almost an instant, he furiously attacked and suddenly enveloped Chu Fengmian with his palm. His palm wind transformed into a fierce black tiger in the air, covering the sky and the earth. The fierce black tiger let out a tiger roar with the momentum of a tiger roaring in the forest, slapping toward Chu Fengmian. Black Tiger Wind Palm, the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's killing move. It seems that he is really angry and does not intend to give this kid any chance. Many surrounding cultivators hurriedly retreated when they saw the Black Tiger Mountain Lord attack, afraid of being affected. As long as one touched the Black Tiger Mountain Lord, even a quasi-emperor would be seriously injured or even killed. The fierce black tiger directly enveloped Chu Fengmian, and a terrifying power blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Black Tiger Mountain Lord? I think you're the one who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You haven't even stepped into the Emperor realm, so how dare a mere quasi-emperor attack me? Chu Fengmian looked at the Black Tiger Mountain Lord and laughed loudly. All of a sudden, he swung his battle dragon claw in the air and slammed into the black tiger, shattering it into pieces. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's body suddenly moved. He grabbed at the Black Tiger Mountain's Mountain Master. "In front of me, you're just an ant. Do you really think that I can't suppress you? If I want to kill you, it'll be as easy as slaughtering a chicken." Chu Fengmian's claw contained boundless dragon's might as it enveloped the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's body. The Black Tiger Mountain Lord felt as if he was facing an Emperor Venerate when he faced Chu Fengmian. The power of this claw was simply beyond his imagination. It was as if any of his resistance was meaningless. How is that possible? You are merely at the immortal realm. How could you possibly possess such powerful strength? The Black Tiger Mountain Lord's face was filled with horror as he shouted in disbelief. His strength was considered to be at the peak below the Emperor Venerate realm. Why had he ever been suppressed like this? It wasn't just him. Even the people around him didn't think that this would be the result. The Black Tiger Mountain Lord's killing move had been easily neutralized by Chu Fengyan. At the same time, the Black Tiger Mountain Lord was the one in danger. The situation was simply reversed. It was as if Chu Fengyan was a quasi-emperor, while the Black Tiger Mountain Lord was merely an immortal realm old ancestor. The difference in cultivation realm could not be seen at all in Chu Fengyan's body. This person's strength is so strong. He has already surpassed the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. He's probably won the top 50 on the Emperor candidate list. A cultivator muttered to himself. He could tell that the Black Tiger Mountain Lord was not weak. On the contrary, most of the quasi-emperors present were no match for the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. When dealing with Chu Fengyan, the Black Tiger Mountain Lord did not hold back. His first move was an absolute killing move. However, Chu Fengyan's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. It was terrifying to the extreme, enough to crush the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. You're only in the immortal realm. It's impossible for you to have such powerful strength. I'm a quasi-emperor. The power of a quasi-emperor and the power of heaven and earth strengthen my body. The Black Tiger Mountain Lord roared. Following his roar, immobilized the power of heaven and earth to envelop his body, causing his strength to rise steadily as he tried to resist the attack from Chu Fengyan's palm. You still dare to roar? Suppress him. Chu Fengyan snorted coldly. The spiritual energy in his palm suddenly condensed, and he suddenly slammed his palm down. The power of heaven and earth in the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's body was shattered. The power of heaven and earth in his body was not even considered the power of the laws of heaven and earth. It was nothing in front of Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan did not even need to use the power of the laws of heaven and earth. His brute force alone was enough to easily crush the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. The crowd only saw that the power that the Black Tiger Mountain Lord had just unleashed was ruthlessly crushed by Chu Fengyan's palm. As Chu Fengyan pressed his palm down, the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's body was firmly suppressed. No matter how he struggled, he could not escape from Chu Fengyan's palm. With a thought, he suddenly knelt before Chu Fengyan. The Black Tiger Mountain Lord, a character on the Emperor candidate rankings, was now kneeling before Chu Fengyan. This was simply beyond anyone's imagination. Even when the Black Tiger Mountain Lord knelt on the ground, the countless people in the surroundings were still unable to react. The person before them was the Black Tiger Mountain Lord, known as one of the characters closest to the Emperor realm. No one had expected that he would be defeated by Chu Fengyan. Not only was he defeated, but he suffered a crushing defeat. Other than the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's first move, he did not have the slightest ability to resist and was now directly defeated by Chu Fengyan. It could be said that it was a complete defeat. Who is this person? This is too terrifying. Such power. Could he be a true emperor? But his cultivation is only in the immortal realm. He's not even a quasi-emperor. The immortal realm is enough to suppress the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. This is something only a disciple of the Sacred Dragon's secret realm can do. Chapter 1199. Many of the onlookers felt like they were going crazy. Something that they could not even dream of was happening right in front of them. The faces of the few good friends behind the Black Tiger Mountain's Mountain Master were all deathly pale. They had absolutely not expected such an outcome. Please show mercy. A few boundary emperors hurriedly appeared and said to Chu Fengyan, "We're all guests of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Please give us some face and let the Black Tiger Mountain Lord go." Guests of the Five Mountains Sword Sect? The Five Mountain Sword Sect's face is useless to me. When Chu Fengyan heard this, he spoke in a neutral tone. Chu Fengyan had killed many boundary emperors of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Why would he care about a few guests? Chu Fengyan turned around and said to the Blood Demon Supremacy, "Blood Demon Supremacy, do you have a grudge with the Black Tiger Mountain Lord?" "Yes." The Blood Demon Supremacy looked at the Black Tiger Mountain Lord with killing intent. It wasn't just a grudge. The Blood Demon Supremacy almost died in the hands of the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. The grudge between them was absolutely irreconcilable. "All right, I'll leave the Black Tiger Mountain Lord's life to you. You could decide whether to kill him or cut him up. Chu Fengyan said casually. Although the Black Tiger Mountain Lord had a grudge with the Blood Demon supremacy, he didn't offend Chu Fengyan before. Therefore, Chu Fengyan couldn't be bothered. However, since the Black Tiger Mountain Lord was here, he might as well give the Blood Demon supremacy a favor and let the Blood Demon supremacy work for Chu Fengyan. Thank you, Master. The Blood Demon supremacy was stunned when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. Then he said happily. After he finished speaking, he looked at the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. The killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. The blood chi in his hands started to gather and shrouded the Black Tiger Mountain Lord. Blood Demon supremacy, stop! Stop him! The other boundary emperors suddenly reacted. They looked at the Blood Demon supremacy and attacked, intending to stop the Blood Demon supremacy. However, before their spiritual energy could reach the Blood Demon supremacy, a battle dragon claw swept across. These streaks of spiritual energy were mercilessly shattered by the battle dragon claw. Who dares to stop me? Chu Fengyan snorted. If he wanted to kill someone, no one could stop him. Blood Demon Lord, didn't you want to kill him? Kill. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, the Blood Demon Exalted no longer had any misgivings. A terrifying blood aura enveloped the Black Tiger Mountain's master. Miserable shrieks could be heard from the body of the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master. Not only did Exalted Blood Demon want to kill the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master, he also wanted to devour all of the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master's blood essence and make him suffer great pain. Scram! Suddenly, a five-colored sword light pierced in the direction of the Blood Demon supremacy. The appearance of this five-colored sword light was extremely mysterious. It was as if it had been born from the void. This five-colored sword light contained the spiritual energy of the five elements of heaven and earth. It contained the power of all things in the world. The sword slashed down. It's the five elements sword technique. This is the sword light of the rainbow, Sunglow sword. It's the little sword master, sword cultivator Yi. The Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master helped the little sword master when he was still weak. He's his good friend. Now, the little sword master can't help but take action. Seeing the appearance of the rainbow, Sunglow sword's sword light, many people's expressions did not change much. It was as if they had expected this. The Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master's achievements were related to the little sword master, sword cultivator Yi. When sword cultivator Yi was still weak, the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master had helped him. Later on, as sword cultivator Yi's strength grew stronger, the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master's strength also grew stronger. Now that the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master was in danger, sword cultivator Yi would definitely not stand by and watch. This five-colored sword light didn't only envelop the Blood Demon supremacy. Most of its power was directed towards Chu Fengyan. Clearly, sword cultivator Yi didn't only want to kill the Blood Demon supremacy. He wanted to kill Chu Fengyan, Jin Yuan, Qing Song, and the others as well. Five elements sword technique, come at me. Chu Fengyan's expression didn't change when he saw the sword coming. Instead, a sword also condensed in his hand. The ancestral dragon supreme sword condensed. The moment it was unsheathed, a dragon's roar resounded. The sword chi that erupted transformed into the appearance of an ancient war dragon. It collided with the five-colored sword light. The two forces collided. The five elements' spiritual energy wanted to destroy the ancient war dragon. However, the ancient war dragon roared again and again. It even wanted to devour the five elements' spiritual energy. At the moment when the ancient war dragon was about to be devoured, the five elements' spiritual energy suddenly exploded. It turned into raging flames that engulfed everything and destroyed the ancient war dragon. This collision seemed to be evenly matched. However, in the eyes of many experts, they could clearly see the difference. At the moment when the two forces collided, even Chu Fengyan's swordsmanship was superior. It surpassed the five-colored sword light of the little sword master, sword cultivator Yi. In the end, it was the explosion of the five-colored sword light that resulted in a draw. In terms of swordsmanship, Chu Fengyan was still stronger. Where did this person come from? His swordsmanship is actually on par with the little sword master? A monster? How could such a monstrous genius remain unknown and have never appeared before? A quasi-emperor stared at Chu Fengmian and said in shock, "The little sword master, sword cultivator Yi, could be said to be the best swordsman among the younger generation of the ancient monster continent." Among the younger generation, there were indeed geniuses who were close to him in terms of strength. However, there were no geniuses who could compete with him in terms of swordsmanship. Now, Chu Fengmian was not only strong enough to crush quasi-emperors, but his swordsmanship was also on par with sword cultivator Yi. How could this not shock the crowd? "You're also a swordsman?" In the void, sword cultivator Yi's surprised voice suddenly sounded. Even he did not expect Chu Fengmian to be a swordsman. Like him, Chu Fengmian had already stepped into the sword god realm. His sword move was not his strongest move. However, it still displayed the sword will of the sword god realm. Chu Fengmian could be on par with him. There was no doubt that Chu Fengmian's sword was also in the sword god realm. "Looks like your swordsmanship does not belong to the Five Mountain Sword sect. Brat, I will give you a chance. Hand over your swordsmanship and release Black Tiger Mountain Lord. Then I will spare your life." Sword cultivator Yi's voice came from the void again. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Chu Fengmian. They all wanted to see his answer. Sword cultivator Yi was one of the most terrifying quasi-emperors in the ancient monster continent. Black Tiger Mountain Lord was only ranked in the top 100, while sword cultivator Yi was in the top 10. Those in the top 10 had already killed true emperors. Although they had yet to pass the tribulation, they were no different from true emperors. Chapter 1200. The top 10 on the list were no weaker than true emperors. Moreover, sword cultivator Yi had killed a true emperor before. There was no doubt about his strength. Even 10 Black Tiger Mountain Lords together wouldn't be a match for sword cultivator Yi. All eyes were on Chu Fengmian now that he was making a move. "Master," even the blood demon supremacy could not help but stop and look at Chu Fengmian. His eyes were filled with dread, even though he knew that Chu Fengmian had killed a true emperor before. However, sword cultivator Yi had done the same before. "Hand over my sword technique? What a joke. Who do you think you're going to make me hand over my sword technique? This Black Tiger Mountain Lord has provoked me and will die without a doubt. No one will be able to save him." Chu Fengmian suddenly laughed and took a step forward. Chu Fengmian was not afraid in the slightest when faced with the threat of the sword cultivator Yi. The sword in his hand moved, and he slashed toward the Black Tiger Mountain's mountain master. Chu Fengmian treated Yi Jianchu's threat as nothing. Now, Chu Fengmian was going to kill Black Tiger Mountain Lord in front of Yi Jianchu. "Monster! How presumptuous!" An incomparably furious voice sounded from the void. At the same time, the surrounding void was suddenly torn apart and a sword light erupted from the void. He rushed in Chu Fengmian's direction and slashed at him in an instant. The power of his sword was aimed at Chu Fengmian. "Sword cultivator Yi, young sword lord? What a big tone. Someone like you deserves to be called a sword lord. Don't hide your face, come out." Chu Fengmian's sword moved and a dazzling sword ray soared to the sky, colliding with sword cultivator Yi's sword ray. At the same time, Chu Fengmian suddenly attacked with a battle dragon claw. The claw swept through the void and froze the surrounding space. Within the void, there was another figure who was trying to escape. However, he was frozen in place along with the void and was caught by the war dragon's claw. The crowd watched as the battle dragon claw pierced into the void. Suddenly, a figure was grabbed out by the battle dragon claw. Following that, sword chi shot out in all directions, shattering the battle dragon claw. The figure then turned into the appearance of a young man who stood at the side. "Young sword lord, sword cultivator Yi." Seeing the appearance of this young man, the countless onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were all shocked. Sword cultivator Yi's technique of hiding in the void was an extremely powerful secret technique. It was enough to fuse his body with the void. This method was invincible. Many true emperors couldn't find his real body in the void. But now, sword cultivator Yi was forcibly pulled out of the void by Chu Fengmian. Damn it! Yi Jianchu's face darkened when he was pulled out of the void in front of everyone. It was a great humiliation for someone of his status to be pulled out of the void in front of everyone. "Brat, you're courting death. No one can challenge my dignity. Anyone who dares to do so shall die. Rainbow sword unsheathed. Yi Jianxiu let out a long howl. In the palm of his hand, a seven-colored spiritual sword was unsheathed in an instant. The dazzling sword light contained the power of the five elements and condensed the power of heaven and earth as it slashed towards Chu Fengyan. A spirit sword condensed from the power of the five elements. The moment Chu Fengyan saw the seven-colored sunglow sword in Yi Jianxiu's hand, he could tell that the seven-colored sunglow sword was not an ordinary spiritual sword. It was a spiritual sword that had been forged by gathering the power of the five elements. If Chu Fengyan could get his hands on the pure power of the five elements contained in the spiritual sword and devour the power of the five elements, he would be able to convert it into the laws of heaven and earth. The power of the five elements was born from the heaven and earth. Once refined, it could easily be turned into the laws of the heaven and earth. You think you're invincible just because you killed a true emperor? Today, I'll tell you that your so-called genius is nothing in front of me. When Chu Fengyan saw the five elemental sword light slashing over, the ancestral dragon supreme sword in his hand burst out with dazzling light again. The spirit energy in the surroundings turned into ancient battle dragons. In the blink of an eye, the dragons danced and roared. The primordial battle dragons clashed with the five elemental sword light and killed each other. You dare to compete with me with such puny sword techniques? Sword cultivator Ye's expression turned serious. Murderous intent surged in his eyes as he unleashed one sword technique after another. Yi Jianxiu deserved to be called the young swordmaster. He was the best swordsman among the younger generation of the Five Mountain Sword sect. His swordsmanship was unpredictable. Streaks of strange swordsmanship were aimed at Chu Fengyan from countless directions at any time. Each of the swordsmanship contained an extremely terrifying power. It could be said that once Chu Fengyan was struck, he would be severely injured even if he didn't die. But Chu Fengyan just stood there, allowing sword cultivator Ye's countless sword techniques to come at him. He could break them all. There were countless sword techniques, but none of them could really get close to Chu Fengyan. It's hard to separate. This person is strong enough to fight against the young sword lord. The crowd was in disbelief when they saw this result. Who was the little sword master? It could be said that all the warriors in the ancient monster continent had heard of him. On the other hand, Chu Fengyan was a nobody. They didn't even know his name, yet he was strong enough to fight against the young sword lord. Chu Fengyan didn't use any secret technique to fight back, but his swordsmanship had reached a level where he was on par with the junior swordmaster. Each of sword cultivator Ye's sword techniques was countered by Chu Fengyan. But this kid's cultivation is still too low. If he's a quasi-emperor, he might have a chance to defeat sword cultivator Yi. Unfortunately, he won't be able to do it this time. A woman's eyes flickered as she stared at Chu Fengyan and muttered to herself. That's right. Sword cultivator Ye's sword technique can't do anything to him, but he also doesn't have a chance to counterattack. If this continues, he'll have an opening sooner or later. As long as he can find an opening, he won't be defeated. Another red-haired man said as he stared at the battle. What a pity. This kid's sword technique isn't inferior to sword cultivator Ye's, but his cultivation is still too low. There's a huge gap between the eternal realm and a quasi-emperor. Chapter 1201. In the eyes of most people, the outcome of this battle was still 50-50. However, many people had already seen through the essence of this battle. Although Chu Fengyan had countered the countless sword techniques that Yi Jianxiu had unleashed, Chu Fengyan had no chance of defeating him. However, Chu Fengyan didn't have any ability to fight back. He could only take the beating passively. Sword Cultivator of the Night kept striking out with his sword techniques. He was also using strong attacks to suppress Chu Fengyan, so that Chu Fengyan could not retaliate. In this way, Chu Fengyan could only take the beating passively. It was not easy to crack the swordsmanship. Under such continuous swordsmanship, Chu Fengyan would be undefeatable as long as he found a flaw. This was the difference in cultivation level. Chu Fengyan was only in the immortal realm, while Yi Jianxiu was a quasi-emperor. It was this difference in cultivation level that allowed Yi Jianxiu to gain the upper hand. Kid, let's see how long you can resist. Spirits of the four symbols condense. Yi Jinxiu shouted coldly. The spirits of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise all condensed beside him. Although the spirits of the four symbols were only illusions, the moment they condensed, they contained extremely terrifying power. The spirits of the four symbols were all innate divine beasts. At Yi Jinxiu's command, the spirits of the four symbols fused into the sword light of Yi Jinxiu. A burst of spiritual energy burst out. The spirits of the four symbols mixed in the sword light locked onto Chu Fengmian's body, revealing an extremely terrifying murderous intent. Spirits of the four symbols? Yi Jinxiu's sword technique has already reached this level? The woman who had spoken earlier was extremely shocked when she saw Yi Jinxiu's sword. She knew Yi Jinxiu very well and had even fought with him countless times. However, this was the first time she saw the spirits of the four symbols condense. Clearly, Yi Jinxiu's strength was a step closer than she had imagined. Now, in order to kill Chu Fengmian, Yi Jinxiu was no longer planning to hide his strength. He condensed the spirits of the four symbols to kill him in one strike. This kid is finished. The red-haired man also shook his head. Even in their memories, Yi Jinxiu had been able to defeat Chu Fengmian with ease. Furthermore, Yi Jinxiu's strength had improved. The spirits of the four symbols were pure power. It was not something that Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship could withstand. Let's see how you block this sword. Die under the might of the four symbols. Yi Jinxiu laughed heartily as he watched the spirits of the four symbols charge toward Chu Fengmian with sword light. Spirits of the four symbols. Is this your final trump card? These four spirits aren't your own strength at all. They're just condensed with the help of the spirit sword in your hand. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the spirits of the four symbols. Since you don't have any more tricks up your sleeves, there's no need for you to continue living. I've already obtained all of your swordsmanship. Do you really think you're on equal footing with me? In front of me, you're just an ant. I'll let you experience true swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian didn't even use any of his trump cards to deal with Yi Jinxiu. He just wanted to see Yi Jinxiu's swordsmanship. Yi Jinxiu had an extremely high status in the Five Mountain Sword Sect. He basically knew most of the swordsmanship of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Given Chu Fengmian's attainments in Sword Dao, he would be able to learn every single one of Yi Jinxiu's swordsmanship and integrate them into his nine-realm swordsmanship, adding to his nine-realm swordsmanship. Now that Yi Jinxiu's swordsmanship had been obtained by Chu Fengmian, he was no longer of any value. Gigantic sword light out. Chu Fengmian laughed heartily. In an instant, his aura skyrocketed. Chu Fengmian's cultivation level had leaped into the quasi-emperor level. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's strength had increased by more than 5 times. Quasi-emperor? This person's true strength is that of a quasi-emperor? Seeing the sudden change in Chu Fengmian's aura, everyone exclaimed in disbelief. He's not a quasi-emperor. This is a secret technique. This person already has a secret technique that he hasn't used. What a powerful secret technique. Could it be that he's really hiding his strength? He still dares to hide his strength when facing the young sword master? Everyone was incomparably shocked. Although hiding one's strength was something that many cultivators were willing to do, it also depended on who the opponent was. When facing the young sword master, no one would dare to hide their strength. Even if they unleashed their full strength, they might not be a match for the young sword master, let alone hiding their strength. The lady who spoke looked at Chu Fengmian for a long time. Then, she sighed and said, "It seems like this person is really incomparably confident. To think that he still has a trump card. Chu Fengmian, the ancient serpent empire has indeed produced a powerful little fellow. This person has offended our heavenly Peng empire. He's definitely going to die. Even if Yi Jinxiu doesn't kill him today, I'll still kill him." The red-haired man snorted coldly and said, "Second prince, if you want to kill him, this is the best opportunity." The lady chuckled and said, "Sneak attack? There's no need for that to deal with a little fellow like him. I'll kill him openly. However, this person might not be able to escape from the hands of Yi Jinxiu today. You should also know that Yi Jianxiu's trump card is not limited to this. The red-haired man who was addressed as the second prince looked at the lady and said calmly, "Let's see. I think this little fellow is not as simple as he seems." After saying that, the lady did not say anything else. Instead, she continued to look at the battle. Chu Fengmian's aura was already close to the peak of the quasi-emperor realm. In terms of aura, there was no difference between him and Yi Jianxiu. Secret technique? You're actually hiding such a secret technique? Yi Jianxiu was first shocked. After being shocked, his face became even gloomier. Chu Fengmian had been hiding his secret technique when fighting against him. Clearly, Chu Fengmian did not take the young sword master seriously from the very beginning. Do you think that I don't have a trump card just because you have one? Secret technique? My trump card is much more powerful than your secret technique. Supreme Sword Chi go! Yi Jianxiu shouted. Suddenly, a golden light appeared from his body. At the same time, rays of sword chi flew out from Yi Jianxiu's body. The rays of sword chi that flew out were incomparably sharp. A total of 800 rays of sword chi condensed together. They covered the sky and earth and formed a sword formation that enveloped Chu Fengmian's head. Supreme Sword Chi. This is the legendary Supreme Sword Chi. The rumors are true. The Supreme Sword Chi of the Five Mountain Sword Sect has been handed over to the young sword master. Chapter 1202. The moment the 800 Supreme Sword Chi left the scabbard, the entire sky was filled with this Supreme Sword Chi. The sword intent was shocking. The surroundings turned into a world of swords. The Five Mountain Sword Sect really thinks highly of Yi Jianxiu, even giving him such a treasure. The second prince murmured while looking at the young sword lord. Forced to use his trump card by an eternal brat, that's all Yi Jianxiu can do. Winner takes all, it's nothing. Chu Fengmian didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He can't blame anyone for his death. The woman looked at Chu Fengmian and shook her head. She didn't think that Chu Fengmian had any chance of defeating the young sword lord. The supreme sword energy was the purest sword Dao treasure. With it, one would be nearly invincible among sword cultivators. Even if Chu Fengmian's strength was on par with Yi Jianxiu, the latter's supreme sword energy was enough to seal the victory. Brat, you didn't expect this, right? Let's see how you're going to resist my supreme sword energy. Yi Jianxiu stared at Chu Fengmian with a ferocious smile. You dare to challenge my prestige? I'll kill you right now. Let's see who dares to challenge my prestige. Supreme sword energy, die. Yi Jianxiu unleashed the supreme sword aura and suddenly attacked. His spirit energy surged into the supreme sword aura, and 800 rays of supreme sword aura suddenly gathered together in Yi Jianxiu's hand. Then, they gradually fused into one and turned into a shocking sword ray that slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Space collapsed, and a landscape rotated. Wherever this shocking sword light passed, space collapsed, sweeping up spatial turbulence and shrouding Chu Fengmian's head. It aimed straight for Chu Fengmian's chest. Just this slash alone could kill a one-tribulation true emperor. As for Chu Fengmian, he stood where he was. Even when the astonishing sword ray approached him, he did not move in the slightest. Supreme sword energy? Is this your last resort? Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Just as the shocking sword aura was about to pierce into Chu Fengmian's chest, a small golden sword suddenly condensed on his chest. This small golden sword looked ordinary. However, when the shocking sword aura came into contact with this small golden sword, it seemed to have felt a sense of fear. Immediately after, it dispersed and turned into numerous supreme sword auras, trying to escape. Yi Jianxiu, supreme sword energy, isn't meant to be used like this. It's like a pearl covered in dust in your hands. Hand it over. Chu Fengmian laughed out loud. He raised his palm high up in the air and immediately enveloped the area. Chu Fengmian grasped the 800 supreme sword energies in his hand, and they still wanted to resist. Yi Ji anxiously, spirit energy erupted from the golden sword and suppressed the 800 strands of sword energy. In terms of control over supreme sword energy, Chu Fengmian far surpassed Yi Jinxiu. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had more supreme sword energy than Yi Jinxiu. His 800 strands of supreme sword energy were condensing into a shocking sword ray and were about to kill Chu Fengmian. However, in the next moment, they were shattered by Chu Fengmian and collected. Boom! Yi Jinxiu's spirit energy exploded in the air. His body was forced back, and he looked at Chu Fengmian with a face of shock. He never thought that Chu Fengmian would collect his supreme sword energy like that. You're the person who killed Teng Jian? You also have supreme sword energy? Yi Jinxiu suddenly remembered that the person who killed Teng Jian outside the 10,000 Dragon City was the person who had supreme sword energy. However, he couldn't deduce Chu Fengmian's appearance back then. He only saw the supreme sword energy. Now that he saw Chu Fengmian's supreme sword energy, he suddenly reacted. Then his face turned pale. Chu Fengmian's supreme sword energy was much more than his. If this went on, the supreme sword energy would be suppressed by Chu Fengmian sooner or later. The supreme sword energy was the guarantee of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. If it was lost, Yi Jinxiu couldn't bear the responsibility. Let's attack together and take back the supreme sword energy. Yi Jinxiu suddenly shouted. The Five Mountains Sword Sect disciples behind him suddenly flashed with sword light. More than a dozen quasi-emperors attacked at the same time. Sword light slashed toward Chu Fengmian. The most dazzling sword light was not inferior to Yi Jinxiu's sword at all. It's Song Jian, one of the deputy leaders of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. He was the young sword master of the Five Mountain Sword Sect. Later on, he took the initiative to retire and let Yi Jinxiu inherit the title of young sword master. He also came. Among the onlookers, some elderly warriors suddenly spoke. The young people didn't remember, but they knew who the person who attacked was. Yi Jinxiu, you actually lost the supreme sword energy in your hands. How useless. When we return to the sect, I will definitely take away your title of young sword master. You don't deserve to be called young sword master. Song Jian attacked while speaking to Yi Jinxiu disdainfully. Yi Jinxiu couldn't refute this sentence, but his face was gloomy. He looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous eyes. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. The two names of young sword master and Yi Jinxiu were bound together in the ancient monster continent. If Yi Jinxiu really lost this title, he would also become the laughingstock of the ancient monster continent. Don't argue. Let's kill this guy first. This guy killed Teng Jian, so the Five Mountain Sword Sect must kill him. Yi Jinxiu's face gradually calmed down as he spoke. This guy has 1,000 supreme sword energies. If we can get it, it will be a great opportunity for the Five Mountain Sword Sect. What? The establishment of the Five Mountains Sword Sect relied on the 800 supreme sword energies. This guy has 1,000 of them? When Song Jian heard this, he looked at Chu Fengmian with greedy eyes. 800 supreme sword energies had established the Five Mountain Sword Sect. If they could get 1,000 more, it would be a great opportunity for anyone. Kid, hand over the supreme sword energies. Hand over the supreme sword energies, and we will let you die quickly. Song Jian stepped forward and stared at Chu Fengmian. Beside him, a dozen disciples of the Five Mountain Sword Sect had already attacked together. Rays of sword light slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Obviously, they wanted to besiege Chu Fengmian. Despicable. The people of the Five Mountain Sword Sect are besieging this guy? Chapter 1203. There were more than 10 quasi-emperors from the Five Mountain Sword Sect attacking Chu Fengmian at the same time. This infuriated many of the onlookers. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. This person possesses supreme sword chi. Even if we, the Five Mountain Sword Sect, don't kill him, the other forces will. He can only blame himself for being weak. Song Jian said disdainfully when he heard the discussions. Brat, how do you want to die? Still trying to struggle? Do you think you're a match for us? Song Jian stared at Chu Fengmian with confidence. Their sect had more than a dozen quasi-emperors. They could kill a 2-tribulation true emperor, let alone a 1-tribulation true emperor. Chu Fengmian might be strong, But could he reach the two tribulation true emperor level? They didn't believe that Chu Fengmian could defeat all of them. Strength in numbers. Chu Fengmian looked at the 5 mountain sword sect disciples and sized them up. His eyes flashed with disdain. They're just a bunch of chickens and dogs. No matter how many of them there are, they're all here to die. Song Jian, right? I think your name should be changed to Death. Today, none of you from the 5 mountain sword sect will leave this place alive. Chu Fengmian laughed. This 5 mountain sword sect was really a group that came to kill one person. But so what if there were a lot of them? Chu Fengmian would kill them all. You want to see how many people they had. How dare you? Kid, looks like you're courting death, daring to oppose our 5 mountain sword sect. Song Jian's expression darkened after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. His eyes flashed with murderous intent as he glared at Chu Fengmian. Seems like defeating Sword Cultivator Yi is enough to make you overestimate yourself. You should know that Sword Cultivator Yi is nothing in front of me. I'll kill you right now and show you my power. Song Jian roared. The spiritual sword in his hand flashed as he attacked. Boom! His sword ray spanned 10,000 feet and slashed down at Chu Fengmian. Its power was pure sharpness. This sword was simple and unadorned. However, it contained an extremely sharp sharpness. There was nothing that could resist this terrifying sharpness. At the same time, the remaining disciples of the 5 mountain sword sect also attacked at the same time. Their sword lights also blocked Chu Fengmian from all directions. Chu Fengmian couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Sword God, 10,000 heavy sword. Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change after seeing the incoming sword rays. He slowly lifted his spirit sword and unleashed a slash. The might of a single sword split into tens of thousands of sword gleams, shattering all the incoming sword gleams. Song Jian, you think Sword Cultivator Yi is strong? Unfortunately, Sword Cultivator Yi is only an ant in my eyes. You're the same as well. I can kill you like a dog. Supreme sword energy come. In an instant, a vortex appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. Chu Fengmian quietly activated the sky, devouring secret technique. It refined the 800 supreme sword chi in Chu Fengmian's palm. In an instant, all of them were subdued by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian unsheathed his sword. A total of 1,800 supreme sword chi were condensed together and strengthened the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. The sharpness of the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword became countless times stronger. Vaguely, Chu Fengmian felt that the power of the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was approaching the Emperor Jar. The Supreme Sword Chi is indeed a supreme treasure. With these 1,800 Supreme Sword Chis, the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword will be upgraded to a half-step extreme immortal weapon, surpassing countless heaven-grade spirit artifacts. Chu Fengmian laughed. The arrival of the 800 Supreme Sword Chi was a great surprise. It made Chu Fengmian's strength improve further. It's your honor to die under the Supreme Sword Chi. Sword Master Heaven and Earth. Boom! Chu Fengmian's sword fell from the sky. The surrounding space seemed to be controlled by an unparalleled force. The unsheathed sword was enough to control heaven and earth. In this heaven and earth, Chu Fengmian was the supreme ruler. With the spiritual sword in his hand, a light slash was enough to shatter heaven and earth. Song Jian's sword intent was instantly shattered. The tremendous power even sent Song Jian flying dozens of miles away. Die! Chu Fengmian coldly snorted as he pointed his sword forward. Song Jian's body was forcefully torn apart in the air. The other disciples of the 5 mountain sword sect also fell into Chu Fengmian's heaven and earth like Song Jian. With just a glance from Chu Fengmian, their bodies would be torn apart. Little bastard, stop it! At this critical moment, the void suddenly vibrated. A huge amount of spiritual energy suddenly broke through the void and rushed in. This tremendous spiritual power also contained the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Only the laws of heaven and earth could break Chu Fengmian's sword master heaven and earth. Get lost. Chu Fengmian's expression darkened when he saw someone interfering, especially when this person called him a little bastard. Clearly, he didn't have good intentions. Chu Fengmian's sword moved and slashed at the figure. At the same time, a dragon claw came down from the sky and collided with Chu Fengmian's sword. A dragon? Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with surprise. He thought the attacker would be an expert from the Five Mountain Sword sect. He didn't expect it to be a true emperor from the dragon race. But so what if he was from the dragon race? Chu Fengmian dared to come here today and slay a dragon. He hadn't tried slaying a true emperor from the dragon race yet. Today was the perfect time for a taste. Don't sneak around, come out. Chu Fengmian became impatient when he saw that the true emperor didn't intend to show himself. In the air, the battle dragon claw suddenly materialized and swept across the space. In the void, it suddenly collided with a huge amount of spiritual energy. Then, a figure flew out from the void. Fire Dragon King, the king of the Fire Dragon race from the Divine Dragon Empire. Many people recognized his identity when they saw him. He was the king of the Fire Dragon clan. The Fire Dragon monarch was at least a second tribulation true emperor. Chu Fengmian could sense more than 10 worldly laws from his body, compared to Lu Daojun, who knew how many times stronger he was. Chapter 1204. Although Chu Fengmian was only in the immortal realm and had not advanced to quasi-emperor yet, he possessed a total of 81 heavenly laws. However, Chu Fengmian had 181 laws of heaven and earth, much more than the Fire Dragon King. In terms of heavenly laws, Chu Fengmian was close to a peak 3 tribulation true emperor. However, he was still lacking in other aspects. Even so, it was more than enough to deal with the Flame Dragon King. Flame Dragon King, what is the meaning of this? Chu Fengmian shouted coldly when he saw the Flame Dragon King suddenly appear. This was the Divine Dragon Empire. It was not strange for the Flame Dragon King to appear. However, the Flame Dragon King suddenly attacked. If Chu Fengmian did not give an explanation, killing this Flame Dragon King would be as easy as killing an ant. Little bastard, as a member of the dragon race, you actually dare to attack so recklessly in the Divine Dragon Empire. Did your seniors not discipline you? Everyone from the Five Mountain Sword sect is an honored guest of our Divine Dragon Empire. You have disturbed our honored guests. Quickly kneel and apologize. The Flame Dragon King appeared. He was a strong man with horrifying spirit energy. When one approached him, one could feel the heat of his flames. Also, you actually dared to attack me, offending your superiors and being so rude. According to the laws of the Divine Dragon Empire, you have already committed a capital offense. Since this is your first offense, kneel now and calm the anger of the Five Mountain Sword sect disciples. Then, we will be lenient with today's matter. When the Flame Dragon King spoke, he sounded aloof, like he was giving an order. In the dragon race, the purity of one's bloodline represented one's status. The purer the bloodline, the higher one's status. The Flame Dragon King inherited the purest bloodline of the Fire Dragon race, so he was the Dragon King. In the Flame Dragon King's opinion, Chu Fengmian was just an unknown dragon race fellow. Even if Chu Fengmian was somewhat strong, he would only be a slave before the Flame Dragon King. The Flame Dragon King did not care about Chu Fengmian at all, calling him a little bastard. Oh, since when did the Divine Dragon Empire's people become the Five Mountains Sword Sex dogs? Chu Fengmian suddenly guffawed at the Flame Dragon King's words. And you, Flame Dragon King, why do you keep calling me a little bastard? Let me tell you, your bloodline is nothing but a bastard in front of me. How dare you ask me to kneel? At that instant, Chu Fengmian completely unleashed the bloodline of the battle dragon within his body. His battle dragon bloodline became restless as a dragon might was fired into the sky. When dealing with the Five Mountain Sword sect disciples, Chu Fengmian did not even activate the power of the battle dragon bloodline. Therefore, in the eyes of the Fire Dragon King and the others, Chu Fengmian should be a little fellow who had inherited a weak dragon bloodline. His bloodline was lowly. However, the moment the Flame Dragon King sensed the dragon might, its expression changed drastically. This dragon might was much stronger than the dragon might of many of the Divine Dragon Empire's princes. This had already surpassed Tianlong. The Divine Dragon belonged to the 10,000 Dragon clan, and it was said that the bloodline of the ancient war dragon was the closest to the bloodline of the ancestor, Tianlong. Ancient battle dragon bloodline. How is this possible? The Fire Dragon King was speechless for a moment. He stared at Chu Fengmian, stuttering. No one knew what he was thinking. Then, the Fire Dragon King suddenly revealed a somewhat ferocious expression. Damn little thief. It turns out that you were the one who stole the battle dragon bloodline that my divine dragon empire has been preserving. To think that you dare to recklessly come to the divine dragon empire today. Just as well. Today, this king will take away your bloodline and return this battle dragon bloodline to the divine dragon empire. Are you going to hand over the bloodline yourself? Or do you want this king to make a move? The Fire Dragon King stepped forward, closing in on Chu Fengmian. The Fire Dragon King's words startled many of the surrounding cultivators. Then, they looked at Chu Fengmian with some suspicion. The ancient fiend continent's dragon race bloodline did indeed come from the divine dragon empire. However, Chu Fengmian's rise came from the ancient snake empire. This was not normal in the first place. Furthermore, the divine dragon empire should have known about Chu Fengmian's pure bloodline. It was indeed possible that Chu Fengmian stole it from the divine dragon empire. Despicable bastard. To think that you dare to steal our divine dragon empire's bloodline. A divine dragon empire quasi-emperor, standing behind the Fire Dragon King, shouted angrily. Your Highness Fire Dragon King, there is no need to speak nonsense with this person. Since this person dared to steal our divine dragon empire's bloodline, he already deserves death. Just kill him directly. The instant this divine dragon empire quasi-emperor spoke, he suddenly stepped forward and transformed. Dense scales materialized on his body, turning him into an incredibly huge fire dragon and ferociously attacking Chu Fengmian. When this dragon race quasi-emperor reverted to his true form, his strength increased several-fold. Immediately, a group of dragons roared and attacked Chu Fengmian's body. The move he executed was very similar to the Battle Dragon Claw. However, this Fire Dragon Claw was much cruder than the Battle Dragon Claw. It only looked like a Fire Dragon Claw. It was worlds apart from the true Battle Dragon Claw. Just an insignificant fire dragon dares to behave atrociously before me. Murderous intent flared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. These were all little bastards. Even a clay figurine would get angry. What more Chu Fengmian? Originally, on account of this being the divine dragon empire, Chu Fengmian did not want to fall out with these dragon race quasi-emperors. Now, it looked like this Fire Dragon King did not intend to let Chu Fengmian off. What stolen battle dragon bloodline? Chu Fengmian's battle dragon bloodline all came from the battle dragon art. It could be said to be purer than all the bloodlines in the entire divine dragon empire. The Fire Dragon King's words were just an excuse to deal with Chu Fengmian. Since there was no way to defend himself, Chu Fengmian could not be bothered to continue arguing. Battle Dragon Claw. Chu Fengmian sent out a claw strike. Countless scales materialized and turned into a Battle Dragon Claw. Then, it clashed with the dragon race quasi-emperor's Fire Dragon Claw in the air. The Fire Dragon's claw was smashed into pieces. At the same time, a tremendous force slammed into the Fire Dragon quasi-emperor's body, sending him flying. His dragon scales were shattered one after another. He was already half dead. Little bastard, how arrogant. When the Fire Dragon King saw that Chu Fengmian severely injured that Fire Dragon quasi-emperor with one claw strike, it roared in rage. Then, it immediately swiped at Chu Fengmian. The force of this claw encased Chu Fengmian's head. Immediately, the power of the world descended. Seeking death? Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Suddenly, he swung his claw in the air, vaguely driving a portion of the energy of the 36,000 formations. Then, he turned this battle dragon claw into a claw that tore the sky. Stop then. Just as these two forces were about to clash, another expert suddenly arrived. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.